can call the meeting to order, but first, please turn off your cell phones and watches while the meeting is in session. And no new items will begin after 9 o'clock unless a majority of the members present to vote allow the items to be heard. So the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Somebody would like to lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So next is the roll call.
I'll be doing the clerking, and Marcy is going to be shadowing, and she will do this next time. So, Commissioner Colarusso? Did I pronounce that correctly? Okay. Commissioner Cullinan?
Here.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Here.
Commissioner Green?
Here.
Commissioner Henry?
Here.
Commissioner Mizraca?
Here.
Vice Chair Tolbert?
Here.
Thank you.
Good to have you, Jessica. Call for any changes to the agenda from the commission. I call for any public comment. So a call for a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda for
Second.
tonight.
Commissioner Colarusso?
Yes.
Commissioner Cullinan?
Yes.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes.
Commissioner Mizraca?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Tolbert?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda.
Actually, we're doing the introduction of new commissioners first.
Oh, thank you. At this time, we'd like to welcome and introduce our new commissioners. So, David?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Tolbert. And I snuck in an item that's not normally on our agenda, but we have a lot of new faces here this evening, and so I thought it would be fitting. I know we've gone through some of the procedural items, but for each of our new commissioners, we have 3 commissioners joining us here in 2026. Give them each an opportunity to just say hello and anything that you might be willing to share about yourself and your interest in the commission, not to put you on the spot. And while you're gathering your thoughts, I know that Cathy introduced Marcy, but Marcy Garrett is a new administrative assistant with the city of Sonoma, supports our water, finance, cemeteries, and Parks and Recreation team, and so she will be clerking our meetings moving forward, shadowing Cathy and all of her wisdom here this evening, and probably not the last time we see Cathy for some support, but this is part of the transition as we move some of the Parks and Recreation responsibilities into the new department and out of Public Works. So hence the new faces, and with that, hopefully gave the new commissioners a few moments to think about it in no particular order, but I'm looking here at Joe. Maybe you could kick things off.
Good evening. My name is Joe Henry. I've been in Sonoma for about a year, acquired a home about 6 months ago. So relatively new, given that there are a lot of people in Sonoma who've been here for much longer than that. Very excited to help with this committee. There's a lot of work to be done. I can tell from the things that I've read and the things that I've looked at, and happy to help in any way that I can, and excited about what's coming up.
I'll go next. My name is Lisa Colarusso. I've lived in Sonoma now about 30 years. So my daughter grew up here, went to school here. I work in Napa, and I have a background in social work and education, and I work with children with disabilities, so I hope to bring that lens, into the discussion as we move forward. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joel Green. I've been here for 15 years. I grew up in Santa Rosa. I have 2 boys that are both in sports here in town and a lot of the rec aspect of things. One's 14, he's a freshman at the high school, and then I have a 12-year-old as well, finishing up his last year of Little League. So I also serve on the board for Sonoma Stack Baseball and the Field of Dreams board as well. So kind of how I'm involved, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how we can help the youth of the community is kind of, I think, the perspective that I bring.
Well, we're glad to have everyone, and we want to thank the continuing commissioners for your ongoing service. It's nice to see all 7 chairs filled this evening. So, quick shameless plug, we still have a youth commission spot that we'd love to fill. So if you know anyone, especially those connected to youth organizations and or have connections in that realm, we are looking for a youth commissioner and would gladly take them.
Is there an age limit, top or bottom, on that?
Yeah, if you know that. that'd be awesome.
15 to 18, I believe. If not, it's very close to that, and it is on our website.
Next item is comments from the public. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Under state law, matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commission at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time the item comes up for the committee consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the chair, please step to the podium and speak into the microphone. Begin by stating and spelling your name. So it looks like there are no public comments. Item 4 is the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the commission, staff, or public request specific items to be removed for separate action. Any questions?
And just for I think what I may do this meeting is give some pause as we have new commissioners on. And so typically these are items such as the minutes. Sometimes they're more procedural. So in this instance, with it being the minutes, it's recommended that the motion and the second come from commissioners who attended the meeting rather than newcomers coming on board. But it is, in the future, any commissioners are welcome to make that motion based on their review of the minutes and or other items.
I move to approve the consent calendar. Second.
Commissioner Colarusso.
Yes.
Commissioner Cullinan.
Yes.
Commissioner Donnelly.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Henry.
Yes.
Commissioner Mizuraka.
Aye.
Vice Chair Tolbert.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
The regular calendar, discussion regarding a proposal from AMVETS Post 55 to install a memorial in the Sonoma Veterans Cemetery. David Jahns, Parks and Rec Director. The recommendation is to receive the presentation and provide feedback to staff and the AMVETS Post 55 on the proposed concept. If supportive, provide conditional approval to move forward with the
You
installation.
don't need to read all that. That's all right.
Oh,
You can
just
just pass it off to Dave, and then we'll move forward. Those are your notes for after. Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair Tolbert. I'm going to start because we have the next 3 items, and especially for, I think, longstanding commissioners and new commissioners, it's not the norm that we get items of this nature very frequently in front of us, let alone 3 of them at the same meeting. So I will start off and hopefully reiterate throughout the various presentations how appreciative and grateful we are for these 3 groups, these 3 entities coming forward, essentially looking to enhance and make improvements and funded outside of city resources in both the Veteran Cemetery and then 2 within the Plaza, which will be future items. And so what we'll be doing is giving some background information, and then with each item, I'm going to give representatives to the respective organizations an opportunity to introduce themselves and describe their proposal in more detail. Then you, of course, as the commission, will have more opportunity to ask questions, ask for clarification, ask for further information down the line, however you feel based on it. We'll lay that out as we move through the presentation. So while they are, I guess, similar in nature in that they're items being brought forward to enhance our parks, we are going to treat them as 3 individual items. So you'll be asked to provide feedback on each of them separately, knowing that you'll see a recommendation for each of them. There is the opportunity, should you so wish, on any one of them or 3 of them to create an ad hoc committee to help with design review. So we'll lay that out for each of them, but I wanted to put that out there because you'll sense a similar tone to some of them, even though they're all very distinct and unique projects. So with that being said, we're going to start with a proposal from the AMVETS group to install a memorial in the Veterans Cemetery. So some background information. So staff has been in discussion primarily with representatives from the AMVETS Post 55 regarding a new memorial within the Veterans Cemetery. This is a collaborative effort that's taking place between AMVETS Post as well as the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and that's the Bear Flag Post 1943. So the nature of this memorial is that it would honor 5 soldiers who died while they were on active duty here in Sonoma. And so based on historic records and research that the groups have done, the burial records and exact grave locations have not been identified. So whether they are currently in the Mountain Cemetery location somewhere or somewhere else in Sonoma, we're not sure. And so the proposal is for a singular memorial which would recognize all 5 of those soldiers. And the location, which I'll give you a few images here in a moment, the location is similar in location to where we have another memorial as well as a commemorative flag, and also a piece that commemorates the main star. It's not that location here. So let's move into the location area. So proposed location, this is an aerial view. You can see, if you're familiar, that's the Veterans building there in the bottom left corner. You can see my outline there, my hand drawn there, but that's the piece of land in the Veterans Cemetery that we are looking at. And a little more zoomed in view, this is the location. It's springtime, so we have some weed abatement to get done in that area. But this was just from the last several days we took this photo. As you can see there on the right-hand side, there's an existing memorial as well as a commemorative flag, and then a memorial as part of the star piece, the main featured area. So the initial concept that was brought forward was similar to this design. Again, this is still in progress, and some of the wording may change. The groups are working with it. So the initial concept had this style. Staff met with representatives from the organization out there to talk about the style. One thing we wanted to look at was making sure that it was cohesive with the rest of the site. We talked about the future vision for that location. Are there further memorials proposed? At this time, there aren't specific ones considered, but certainly not off the table. And so we discussed potential levels of consistency of the design as well as the location of where the memorial's being proposed. And so from that discussion, there was a discussion that we may look at, rather than a lower, more profile that is similar to some, that may represent a grave marker. So some discussion of moving potentially to more of a pedestal style, which would be a little bit more in alignment with the existing memorial that's already on site. Because we want to make sure that we're helping tell the story, and that it is clear that these soldiers are not buried in this specific location, but this is a recognition of their service and their duty here in Sonoma. So final design is still in the works, but what we're bringing for you tonight is the concept of this. And as we look ahead to next steps, we're at the top bullet point. We're looking for commission feedback. Any questions are welcome. What we would then do, if the commission is supportive of this concept, is staff, potentially representatives from the commission, if you're so interested, work with the 2 posts who are bringing this presentation forward to finalize design, location, as well as installation. So anytime a pedestal goes in, something of that nature, there's typically a concrete pad that's put in, and so we'll work on that to make sure that we're checking for utilities underground, and that's installed up to standards and codes. Talking about maintenance, finalizing maintenance responsibilities, the general agreement we've come up with is ongoing maintenance of the memorial itself, general cleanliness, that would fall to the veterans group. If there is, if there were to be graffiti, minor cleaning, that would be done by city staff. Staff would be responsible for the overall caretaking of that location. So it would be shared responsibilities for the memorial itself. Once given approval by the city, both organizations are ready to begin the fundraising process. No specific date yet for install, but this is something that they have shared. They're committed to moving this forward quickly. Roughly targeting summer, fall of this year. That is really contingent on getting the final design in place, and then of course the fundraising element. So with that very high level overview, but I think lays that out, and what I'd like to do is, if he'd be willing, is introduce Travis Wagner, who has helped greatly on the design as well as communications between the AMVETS group and the city. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Travis, and if there's anything you want me to bring back on the screen,
Sure.
happy to do so.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. Just briefly, just for clarification, I'm not a member or representative of AMVETS. I'm a local historian that has spearheaded this project, but because it's in the veterans realm in the cemetery, they have taken on, so we're working together. So typically with a veteran, you would have the white marble headstone, which is sponsored or paid for by the Veterans Administration, but because we do not know their exact burial site, they won't do that. So that's why we're looking at that single memorial to celebrate their honor. So there were 5 soldiers. They all died of natural causes. 2 of them were when we were in a state of war, and the other 3 were after that. But we know that they died here while at the barracks, and they were buried somewhere. It was not uncommon for the Army to not record their burial site back then or keep good records. But we do have a fairly a good amount of biographical information about all of them that should this move forward, there is discussion of some type of ceremony that would celebrate their life and their honor, and that would accompany that. So I don't, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Travis. And then just one more, I'll put this in front of you, then I'll turn it back over to the commission, and then both Travis and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. So essentially you have 2 potential paths in front of you. You're welcome to provide feedback to us this evening. If there's some specifics on design or location that you'd certainly like us to explore further. If generally supportive of the concept, it would be to move into final design and to move forward essentially with the installation with city approval. If the commission would like additional information, you can certainly request that that be brought back at a future meeting, knowing that, of course, would change the timeline on install if that were to be brought back. And or you have the option to create an ad hoc committee who could support staff and that way look at some of the design review outside of one of your normally scheduled meetings. So those are a couple of paths you may take this evening, but with that, I would turn it back to you all for your discussion and comments.
I love the idea. I was looking at the dates there, and I mean, they were so young, most of them. I mean,
Yeah.
wow, there was one 21-year-old I think I saw. The things that I was thinking about is consistency of design and materials with what's already there. And I noticed, I think, is it a black granite star that's embedded in the ground there? I mean, I know there's a lot of black
Dark
granite,
yeah.
if that's granite, which is nice. And also, are we thinking about potential future memorials in the same area? And if so, do we need to, think about that going forward, leaving space, consistent design, or not? And that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I think great comments, and it just spurred one comment I want to also that we did explore is right now that specific area, that kind of triangle shape, is not being contemplated as a future burial location. We have other space that there is capacity for in the general area, so your question about whether future memorials, I think that's to be determined. That's something we discussed right now. There's nothing specific, but I think having in mind that that could be potentially coming forward is wise.
Just a comment, that's certainly the design concept and everything. We chose the gray because it's significantly less expensive, and we have to be cognizant of fundraising, which I don't think is going to be a problem, but.
I have a comment. I support the choice that you originally made. It's simple. The other two, it's not only the expense, but they kind of clash with the black granite. I think that simple is, the granite is really beautiful, but if you're gonna start making a lot of monuments, you kind of don't want to have this whole bunch of black things there, you know, and something simple and gray is, I think, more discreet and elegant.
Dave, not to put you on the spot, is the Veterans Hall county property?
It is. So the county hall, the parking lot is county land, and actually the parcel just to the, I guess that would be the east of the,
We have a map.
it's close. So the kind of the brown grass areas around it are all county, the parking lot. So that's a little parcel of the cemetery is city, but the rest is county land.
And I don't know if we know the exact delineation between county and city, but there's a line there of these Italian cypress, are they? And it occurs to me that between those, if we're looking at future opportunities for memorials, that's right along the path and very visible from the path. And so that if that's part of city property, that could be one of the considerations.
And as far as our records show, the cypress do fall on city property.
Okay.
We maintain them at least.
I salute the proposal. I have less a question about design, but more about the history. Are there many other veterans of this era, 1847 to 49, in the cemetery at this time? Were they, you say they were in active action or active in the Army. Was there any ongoing conflict at the time, either it was into the Mexican War, as I remember, or there was indigenous populations in the area? What history is there, and can it be somewhere near this monument so people get some sense of the history?
That's a great question. I know we've talked about how do you provide that information, and it's difficult because you could use a QR code, but what technology is going to exist 10 years from now, let alone next year, would make it, you know, kind of thing. So that's something grappling with. One thought is to put the biographical information on a website with AMVETS. You know, not sure. But to go back to your earlier question, so yeah, it was during the Mexican-American War, and then after that war, there was no other declared war, but they died on active duty, stationed or posted at the Sonoma Barracks. All of them were posted at the Sonoma Barracks. And they were two different periods. One, Mexican-American War, they were volunteers. The other one were regular Army after that. I could spend an hour talking about it, but I won't.
Can I ask a question? So we have a really nice website with information on who's buried in the cemetery, and there is some biographical information on that site, and the Historical Society has been in discussions about how to get more information on the site. So is that a possibility of, yeah?
I mean, short answer is yes, I think absolutely. I think the more we can tell the story of these historic pieces of property that we have and the individuals that are involved in it, I think yes. I mean, we want to look at the kind of what the content would look like and how that flows with a city website versus redirecting to somewhere else. But I think there's a way that we can certainly look to help tell that story.
Any additional questions from the commission? And we would like to encourage public comment at this time.
Can you please, come to the podium?
Hi, my name is Ted Pender,
Pender. And just wondering why the monument isn't going to be placed at the barracks. There's no remains. Does it have to be in a cemetery? It seemed to get a lot more traffic if it was at the barracks where they actually died. My 2 cents, thank you.
Any additional public comment?
So Commissioner Tolbert, I think what we're looking for this evening from the commission is if there is a general level of support for the concept. So I don't think necessarily a motion and a vote is necessary, but would like to make sure that there's general sense of support. And I think some comments on whether the commission is comfortable with the group continuing to work with staff to finalize design and specific location and moving forward, and or if the commission would like to have a level of involvement with that design review. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to you all.
Dave, can I just ask if you think an ad hoc is helpful? I mean, and I'm asking in terms of city resources. I know you're stretched kind of thin. Would it be helpful to have some members of the commission assist you, or do you think you can, or do you think you've got the staff to manage the final design review and location decision?
I think based on what was been brought forward, so if the commission is supportive of the concept and the general location, I think we have the information knowing that we have not only what the AMVETS have proposed as their design, but we also have our cemeteries manager who's been involved in the discussions and has a good understanding of not only the current but the future use of that area. So we would certainly welcome it, but I would think I think we also have the ability to move this forward at staff level as well.
Well, I'm supportive of the concept. I think several others have mentioned that. And in terms of location, I think there's several locations that are possibly very appropriate. Addressing the earlier comment about the barracks, I believe that is not city property, just for clarification.
It's correct. The barracks are city property, state property. We have state, city, and county all in a very, very close proximity.
So the city would not have authority to put a monument there?
That's correct. Doesn't mean conversations cannot happen in that area, but that is not our land to say, yes, we can definitely do this, yes or no, at this point without a further conversation with the state.
Unless I'm mistaken, it's State Park, correct? Is it State Park? That means really hard to put it in there, like crazy hard.
Well, my sense is the commission is supportive. Unless anybody isn't, I recommend that we come out and just say we're supportive of this idea. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think we have the...
I just want to say that I agree with the concept of keeping some consistency with the area and surrounding designs.
Noted. Yeah, I have your comments here, and we'll take that back, and we'll continue to collaborate on that front, and at a minimum, we'll provide the commission updates as we move through the process.
Okay, so item 5.1 is closed. Item 5.2 is discussion regarding a proposal from the Valley of the Moon Garden Club to enhance landscaping around the Carnegie building and the Rose Garden area within the plaza.
Thank you, Commissioner Tolbert, and we're going to work on pulling up the presentation while I do that. So we're going to transition locations from the cemetery to the plaza. The next two proposals we'll be discussing are specific, that's the correct one, are to the plaza itself. The first one, we're going to talk about 3 areas within the plaza. This is being proposed, being supported by the Valley of the Moon Garden Club. And so what I'd like to do is I'll give a little bit of background information. Actually, we'll invite the Garden Club up to come up a little bit sooner in the presentation as they have some information they can run through on the landscaping designs. So a little bit of background information for you all, and you should have hopefully hopefully in your packets, but have that in front of you there. So the Valley of the Moon Garden Club approached staff several months ago with a few concepts, and I'll start by the Garden Club currently has a significant volunteer presence within our plaza. If any of you are familiar with the Rose Garden, the main Rose Garden, which is the image on the right-hand side, had been not shining to its full glory several years ago. Needed a little more love, a little more attention, but it's really been brought back to life, and that's in big part thanks to volunteerism from the volunteers at the Valley of the Moon Garden Club, as well as our city staff, some new staff who came on board and took ownership of that area. So that collaboration between staff and volunteers has really brought the Rose Garden back to, I think, what its original intent was and how you see it here today. And so through that collaboration, where conversations started happening about, are there other potential areas where the Garden Club would be able to put forward their expertise, and in this sense, bring funding forward to help support some enhancements to the plaza. So we're going to be talking about 3 specific locations. One is the rose bed area near City Hall, and that central fountain. So in the top image there, you get a glimpse of the rose garden that's there. What I reference as the more formal rose garden, the larger rose garden is the one on the right-hand side of the image there. That's near the Carnegie building. And then the landscaped beds that immediately surround the Carnegie building, the old Carnegie Library. And so each of the designs has been specifically designed to those locations. So they're each going to have a different feel to them, and the Garden Club has put time and effort into looking at each location and what species may do well in those locations. And they're also proposing that accompanying irrigation and, in some instances, fertilizer infrastructure be placed in those locations to not only support the longevity of the plants there, but also really minimize current staff time that's needed. So for example, the main rose garden takes, in the dead of summer, our staff is out there watering several times a week for significant portions of time. And so adding an irrigation system and an inline fertilization system would really make our maintenance more efficient in those locations. The Garden Club has committed to raising the funds to make these improvements, as well as providing long-term volunteer support. So the same level that they've provided for the Rose Garden is also to provide volunteers them in these other areas. And I think one thing to point out with this proposal, as you'll see with the next, is the plant selection has come down to what makes sense in this environment, what's beautiful, but also is fairly low maintenance. And so that's an important aspect, is we want to make sure that whatever is put in the ground in that area not only looks great for the first few months of it going in, but it's going to look great for years to come. And so that was a key component of the plant selection that was put in front of us. I will share the city is currently going through a historic landscape assessment of the plaza. So we have a firm on board. They've been underway for about a month and a half. They are assessing all of the landscape as well as the buildings and structures within the plaza to give us as a community a better understanding of which elements are actually historic in nature. We know a lot of things have been there for a long time, but in some instances we don't know exactly when items came in, what actually is historic versus something that's just fairly old and carries significance for individual members. And so what we're looking to do is get an understanding of what elements can and cannot, or should and should not be changed because of their context to the history of the plaza. We also hope to be launching a plaza master plan in the near future, which is going to look at the overall use, the long-term maintenance. And so the Garden Club understands that we're going through those processes. And so as we move through the design review, one thing we've committed to is providing the group that's doing the historic landscape assessment, the design, so they can give feedback, and or as we get the historic landscape assessment, provide that to the Garden Club. It's kind of a whichever happens first, to make sure that the proposal is in alignment with the findings of that assessment. And so with that, I'll get to kind of our next steps and talk a little bit about the differentiation of responsibilities and how a proposal like this moves forward. And you'll see this one as well as the next, they're a little more grand in nature, as well as dollar amounts associated with it. So it's a little bit different approval process that'll be moving forward than with what we saw with the Veterans Memorial. But with that, I would like to pause here and introduce representatives from the Garden Club. So I think we're going to start with the Garden Club president, Adrienne Love, who's going to kick things off.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Adrian Love, and yes, it's spelled Love.
Could you spell your first name so I get it right?
Adrienne. I'm president of the Valley Moon Garden Club, and I have my crew here. We have Teddy Pender, who is the vice president, and we have Brian, who's on our board, and Laura, who is our landscape architect. And the reason why we have Teddy and Brian are mainly because they're in charge of on-the-ground installation, and Teddy runs our civic stewardship program for all the projects at the garden club that they do. So at this point, I would like to introduce Laura to lead us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Bassett, Laura Bassett. So I'm here to share with you the ideas the Garden Club has come up with in collaboration with the city. And this comes as a request and a notice of sort of need. So these areas are taken care of in the case of the current rose garden. So the level of intervention there is going to be very light because we don't have a lot that we need to do on the planting side. However, as you've sort of heard already, they are having to hand water a lot of this because the current irrigation system is not working. So a huge part of our plan is to make sure that there is a solid irrigation system that will make sure those roses are watered no matter what time of year it is. And as part of that, we want to add an inline fertilizer system. So instead of having to go around and mix the fertilizer in a bucket and pour it on each rose, it is built into the system. It is injected in and it goes out through the drip. So this also reduces water loss and is very precise and leads to very healthy plants, which of course in the long run leads to having to replace them less, a lot less maintenance, and anybody that has roses know they're very high maintenance plants. So anything we can do to give them the best sort of foundation, that's our plan for the rose garden itself. Now, I think the area that is going to be of the most interest to you, the commissioners, is the area right in front of City Hall. So,
Sorry, Laura, if you want me, just let me know when you want me to.
Yeah, let's go to the next.
Move the slides here.
Okay, so these are the 3 locations, and I did not create this map. This is from the Visitors Bureau. So the area directly in front of City Hall, between the palm tree and City Hall, has these beautiful roses out there, except they're not really that beautiful. They're very disease prone, they're very hard to maintain, and they don't really look that nice, other than maybe one bloom in the spring. So what we would like to do is, let's go to the next slide. So we want to pick one singular rose type. We want it to be something that isn't going to detract from City Hall, because this is the shot. This is Sonoma. We want to make sure that whatever we put in there is just the sort of window dressing and it doesn't draw attention. The building is really what we want people looking at. So we picked yellow as a color because that's a pretty nice color that will match with the stone and it'll look really nice, but it's not too bright, it's not too showy. And we have sort of 4 different roses shown here, but we are proposing to use David Austin Golden Celebration because that is a very hardy rose. We've all grown it. We know, we are very experienced with it. It's not very disease prone. It has a wonderful scent and it blooms year round. So that's sort of our top suggestion, but we have 3 others just in case. So that's pretty much that zone. Let's move into the next one. So I already touched a little bit on the implementations in the rose garden, but we outline the specific items. So there are roses that have died over the years, and so we want to replant where those roses died, 12 different roses. And we're looking at that inline fertilizer system, new valves and drip, and then a huge element is steel edging, which would just go around the outside of the rose garden between it and the lawn, because when that's being maintained, the mulch and the lawn interact. And so if we can give that barrier, it'll make it easier to maintain and keep that edge clean. So now this is the more in-depth discussion, and as Dave already mentioned, This is going to be very contingent on what we hear back from the historical review. The other two areas may be impacted, but they're pretty established. So what we did is we went and looked at historical photos of Carnegie Library to see if there was sort of a historic landscape. Now, of course, the review is going to give us a lot more information, but just looking at these two photos, you can see the first real landscaping that appears might be maybe some willows or some sort of scrubby shrubs near the foundation. And then just based on my knowledge of plants, I would say the second replanting, so it was all replanted, and I would guess somewhere in the 90s. And a lot of the plants that are even in that picture in 2004 are not there now. So there is very little that is still surviving in that area. And anything that is surviving, such as a madrone tree or the camellias, we are going to caretake those and keep them. And let's move forward. So one of the things we want to do is we want to honor the look and feel of the historic plaza. We don't want to create something that is going to be crazy wild out there. We want it really in line with the Mediterranean history, with the Mediterranean growing climate that we have here in Sonoma. So there are two zones to the building itself based on the way the sun hits the building, based on the area. There is the area that is facing the road, facing across towards the Sebastiani Theater, and then there is the area that is facing the Rose Garden. So the front of the building doesn't have that much room. So you can sort of see there's just a very thin area around there. And there are two established shrubs that are already there. So we're gonna wanna get as close to matching on the other side so we create some symmetry. Yes, the bottom of the image is the front. Yeah, thank you, good question. So we want to create some symmetry on both sides, but as you can see, it's not an even planting area. We are not touching any of the hardscape, we're not touching any of the concrete, we're just replanting. And so we are going to layer some foundation planting very similar to the historical plantings that were there, in that we are honoring the concept, maybe not the exact plant material, but we're keeping in line the same look and feel. Then if we move around to the left side of the building on your screen, this is a much more expansive area for this space. And we're proposing, again, some foundation shrubs, as well as some more formal edge to both of these areas, so that there is a continuous look and feel, along with some pollinator-friendly plantings and some pollinator habitat. But this is all plants that are very low maintenance and easy to water, so low water. Okay, next. So this is just a really rough sketch of what that area in front would look like. The different layers you can sort of see grayed out in the back is the existing shrubs, and we're just creating a couple layers of plantings between the building and the sidewalk. A big piece of this is a park, so there is a lot of use, there's a lot of public traffic, and there is a lot of, let's say, off-trail usage. So we need to make sure the plants can handle that. So the plants that are right next to the sidewalk are going to be very hardy to people walking on them. And then as you get further in, you're gonna get a little bit more larger shrubs, but they're very hardy. So next one. And then this is that side that's facing the Italian garden and the rose garden. So this is where we're sort of taking the Mediterranean theme and moving it a little bit more into the modern age, but honoring the history. So we have some layers of blooming shrubs in the back, things like rosemary and westringa. So these are all evergreen plants. That's a huge component of this design. We want this to look good year-round. So these are all evergreen plants, and where we can get them, they also are flowering, so that we get a little bit of double duty here. And then we have sort of this middle area that I will call a meadow, but it is a native grass that has a beautiful seed head in the fall, and then we have some black-eyed Susans that'll pop up. So this is an area that's going to be really great for birds, pollinators, and just bring some native habitat into the area. And it is edged with thyme, so there is that formal feel with a little bit more wild. So just going through the plants real briefly, we selected each of these under those criteria: easy to maintain, low water usage, native where we could, but also we want to make sure that they're doing that double duty of colorful, interesting, evergreen. Next. And each zone will have a unique feel, but it ties together. Okay. So overall, our goal is just to replant these areas, make them more beautiful, public friendly, and as a huge component of that, the Garden Club will be instrumental into fundraising for that, making sure it's installed correctly, and overseeing the maintenance, which is the thing that really makes or breaks most of my designs, is that long-term upkeep, and having a team that is dedicated to really seeing that through is very important to us.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Adrian. Just one kind of slide to tie up the loose ends, and then we'll turn it back over to you all for any questions, and you're welcome to call upon any of the members of the Garden Club if you'd like more detail on the proposal. So similar, we're in the feedback and question stage of the proposal. We'll need to confirm that final design. As you heard them say, we are working in parallel with the historical landscape survey that's taking place, and so making sure that the findings from that as well as the design are in alignment with each other, also feeding that into our master planning process. As you heard, the intent is to not change many of the hardscape elements or really create new uses in these areas, knowing that we're going through a master plan. So sticking to areas that are already defined for specific types of planting. Obviously a very different planting palette being proposed near the Carnegie building, but the intent of that being a planter bed felt like that was something that would remain consistent even through a master planning process. Once approved, we would work through clarifying and getting into a memorandum of understanding, so that there's a clear understanding of maintenance responsibilities. At the end of the day, this remains a public park. It's city property, so the city is ultimately responsible for the upkeep of this. But part of that is we know we've got commitment to have volunteer support in the long run. As with any major renovation project on public property, we have to make sure that we follow the proper channels. So depending on the final scope and nature of it, we're working closely with our city attorney as well as our public works team who handles most construction projects to make sure that we are following all regulations needed to make large scale enhancements in public spaces. We intend to provide the commission, council, community updates on the schedule and anticipated install dates. This is of course contingent on final design, as well as similar to the last proposal. There's a fundraising component to this, so I know that the Garden Club is actively out seeking funding sources and raising the funds or getting commitments to move this forward. But we know that's a key component, as this is not, as you can see, an inexpensive endeavor. And finally, because of the nature of that, there is a step that the City Council is required to adopt and accept a donation of these magnitude. Typically, I believe it's anything that's over the scale of about $10,000 that council is required to accept that donation on behalf of the city. So recommended actions, some similar, but a little bit different than the last action item. So again, here to provide feedback, ask questions, knowing this is not the final design. Again, looking for level of support of the concept to move this forward. If supportive, staff would continue to work with the Garden Club on finalizing design, sharing the information that's coming from those studies, continue to remain in contact about fundraising elements. And so again, similar, you may kind of push this back to city staff to work directly with the Garden Club. The commission also has the opportunity, if you so choose to not move forward with that being proposed, you have the option to recommend only moving forward with certain elements this evening, and or creating an ad hoc committee to support design review or request that the entire proposal be brought back at a future meeting. So those are the tools that you have before you, but that I'll turn it back to you all and happy to answer any questions, and I believe the Garden Club is as well.
Any comments or questions from the committee?
First of all, I think we should thank the Valley of the Moon Garden Club for this proposal. Do we have a rough budget or for fundraising or what this might cost, just ballpark? Not trying to put anyone on the spot.
No,
but
that's a great
for the
question.
magnitude of the
I'll
gift.
let
it's-
Adrian, our president.
I know. Well, obviously, we are fundraising.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we're trying to get donations and also working on grants. So we have a grant already for $5,000, which is basically just a kick in the bucket. But we're also working with a group for a much more heavy donation. So we're hoping it's probably going to be, I don't know, 65, 75,000.
Wow.
So, but we're working on it.
So that's a pretty substantial
It
gift to the
is.
city and to the community as a whole.
Yes, exactly.
And by the way, I think the Rose Garden is one of the absolute gems of the Plaza. It's one of my favorite places to hang. And I really like the Double Delights. Just a little plug for those.
Double delights, yes, yes, and so so we are working with a number of individuals and also again doing a lot of grant writing to get this going, and we are hoping to get this up, and we would like to get into a planting season. Again, it depends on your approval. Our goal would be this fall, but that's.
So
yes.
two quick questions on, first on the Rose Garden, the inline system is probably a question for you, Laura. Is that fertilization system an organic fertilization system?
Yeah, so the same application of fertilizers, the same type of fertilizers that the city already uses would be applied in there. And I think Dave and Brian might be better able to answer what they're currently using and what they would be planning. But it can handle both.
That's wonderful. As long as it's fitting within city policies and it's organic, that's wonderful. I just want to make sure of that.
Yeah.
And then secondly, on the area around the Carnegie Library, a couple of points there. One is, I don't know how soon you're going to start, but there's a mama goose and about a dozen little goslings wandering around there right now. So,
So she's going to love it once there's some grass to hide in next season, right?
She'll
But
love it.
yeah, we're not going to be disturbing her in her nesting season.
And honestly, some of that landscaping around there does unfortunately look a little bit fatigued right now. So it's wonderful that you're considering redoing some of that.
What about the irrigation too?
Has
So the irrigation that we're going to be working on is also going to be part that will tie in
Okay.
to the city plan, and that's one part that's very, very important.
And then a final question: has any consideration been given to, for lack of a better term, fire hardening? I don't know. I mean, perhaps the sidewalk itself is a fire hardening barrier, or whether the plants themselves are more or less susceptible, less oily, whatever. This is not an area that I have a lot of expertise, but I know just enough to be dangerous. And so
Yeah.
don't know whether that's something we want to include in the consideration.
That absolutely has come up, and one of our members brought it up right off the bat. So a lot has gone into that, in that the building itself is of a material that is not flammable, which is nice, the siding, but we are also going to have a defensible space between building and first plantings. On this very conceptual plan, it's hard to tell, but on the construction document, you'll be able to see there's actually about 5 feet between building and first foundation planting. And then all of the plants going in on the front of the building to the side are very low flammability, and I would say 98% other than the rosemary. The rosemary is the only thing I would say that might have a high oil content. And then the other aspect that we might look into, talking with fire, is what that mulch is. However, because the city has their own policies, there might be a city-specific mulch that you use. So if we were doing completely fire hardened, we would want to do a non-flammable mulch, but I don't think that would be applicable to this location, just A, because it's a park, and B, it would change the look and feel drastically. But that is a great question, and we're definitely
I'm glad you
keeping an eye
considered
on
it.
it. Yeah.
Thank you. Wonderful idea.
So I'm going to be the crabby one. I have a David Austin Golden Celebration. Mine was 10 feet tall this year. So if you're looking to put that, or any, roses do so well in Sonoma that you need to put something really short around the fountain, because my experience, I grow Golden Celebration because I love it. But, and Rosa mutabilis, that's where I grow, where I want a barrier. It's a vigorous, 8 foot tall, running rose that makes a big clump and with nasty thorns. So just
Yes,
I
Patricia,
don't-
you brought up a great point, so Golden Celebration comes in 2 different varieties. It just sounds like you have a wonderful garden in that everything thrives and is growing really well. But there is a climbing variety and a shrub variety, and it depends on the rootstock that it's grafted onto.
I have the shrub.
Okay. So, and part of this is the maintenance and cutting back. So a key component to keeping a shrub rose to a size that will be small is definitely in the maintenance. So you bring up a really good point that it will need to be maintained to a smaller size.
Well, good luck with that, because I'm notorious for hard pruning. And I want to reiterate with what David said. I think that the historic resource evaluation will help everybody be guided, and especially the master plan going forward. And I do have one more question, because I am a professional horticulturalist, so I have to do this. Your time. What kind of time? Is it a little shrub, or is it a ground cover?
So the thyme is a short shrub. The one that we picked out gets to about 8 inches tall, so it's a small border shrub. It's not creeping thyme that you walk on. So it is the lemon thyme.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, well. Thank you for making this presentation.
Welcome.
I love the passion that you put into this. I love the attention and thoughtfulness about hardiness and native and drought tolerance. This might be an education for me question. I'm curious about that area, the City Hall Rose Planter area, which if you've ever hung out there on a Tuesday night, you know, gets a lot of traffic, kids, drinking. So what I'm curious about is what will you need to erect, even temporarily, to protect your new plantings? And do you have some additional, like, symbiotic supportive plants in mind, which, and maybe you don't do that with roses, I don't know, but symbiotic plants that actually might serve to kind of protect the new plantings?
That is a great question, Jessica. So you're thinking along the same lines I have. So anybody that's been out there on a Tuesday, people will set up their chairs in among the roses, and that compacts the soil, which leads to a lot of stress on the plants. So one of the things we're going to need to do is the initial amending of that soil. We're going to need to amend it with some good compost and loosen it. But you asked a really great question, which is how do we protect the area when those plants are getting established? Because once they are established, they're going to be able to deal with kids running through, and they're not a heavy thorn rose, but they are a rose, so they do have some thorns. So to some extent, they have a built-in protection. That's a great question about symbiotic plants. Roses are finicky. They don't really like to have, they like airflow. So planting anything too close to them that impedes that airflow through the crown of the rose, we don't want to do. But that brings up a good point. So we'll think about, maybe there's something on that edge that we could do to just give it an extra border.
Thank you so much for the lovely, pictures. I appreciate that. And I too was concerned. I mean, if anyone's ever been to the Plaza with children, we all know why the plants are dying in that area. So yes, any thoughtfulness around it. I do love the color palette of having yellow as being, there. I do hope whatever we put there is able to thrive and to grow. I think one question that I had was about the border and how high that would be for tripping hazards and stuff like that, because I don't want the city to be more liable, so anyway.
Exactly, and that's a large part of the plants that we chose for those other 2 areas is to ensure those are plants that stay put, so it's not something that's going to be flopping into the pathway. So for accessibility purposes, the sidewalk is going to stay clear, and those are tall enough that visually people will say, oh, I don't want to walk in there, but not so tall that it would trip anybody. So that's a good question.
Thank you.
Were you talking about the edging?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The city tends to mandate that stuff too.
Yeah.
The metal edging.
Yeah.
I just want to add, our whole community loves the Sonoma Valley Garden Club. You've done so much for our community, and we have a lot of volunteer organizations. This one really stands out. I especially love the rose, what you did with the rose garden in the plaza. Some years ago, I worked with Bonnie Brown and did the habitat pollinator garden for the monarch restoration behind the Congregational Church. And more recently, this commission's worked directly with Cedra Nathan, as you know, who I hope she's doing well in France,
She is. I just heard
to
from her
build
today.
the plan that's going into the general plan for the green and blue links infrastructure plan to build more connectivity with more
That's coming
more
next.
gardens.
Yep.
So that's been so helpful. There's one question. A couple years ago, because of the poor irrigation on the plaza, the way it was arranged, one of the 2 American elm trees was designated to be dying because of mushroom growth around it. It was evaluated by the arborist and others, and then it was able to preserve it. But out of that came a plan, I believe, to have a professional irrigation study of the plaza. So I'm wondering if that isn't already in the works, and that we don't have to wait for a master plan of the plaza to incorporate it. Or do you have any thoughts on how that might accelerate this irrigation issue?
So there was initially a plan for an irrigation, and that was actually, I think, when the council and staff took a step back, that's where it got rolled into the master planning process. That's intended to be part of what we'll be embarking on. And so rather than looking just at the irrigation, the reason being, if there was ever going to be elements that were to change within the plaza, like if we were, for example, if we were to say we want more picnic areas or playground spaces to move, or we encourage more tree planting in certain areas, the irrigation would need to be designed around those changes. And so the decision was made to roll that into the master plan rather than doing a separate study. So that is part of the upcoming master plan, but it has not taken place yet.
This is all going to be drip irrigation? So kind of back to the high traffic. Are you worried about damage or?
So that is a great question. One of the things with drip is the placement of it in relation to the mulch. So we are going to want to install the plants first, then the irrigation, then the mulch, which will mean there won't be a lot of it exposed to be messed with, but it will be something that will need to be seasonally checked. So, but that is a really good point. And the emitters that I would suggest using is the same that they use in the vineyards, which they last a lot longer, they're much more precise, and they stick. They don't kind of pop off in some of the more household ones. They have those little flags that pop off. These are much hardier and will stay longer. That's a good question.
Yeah, my observations have been mentioned already, but first of all, thanks for bringing this proposal. This is how stuff gets done. Yeah, my first question was, how will your irrigation system dovetail with the upgrade that's going to happen? The technology's gotten pretty far advanced where the irrigation even checks in with weather forecasts and adjusts accordingly. So I think just to make sure that your irrigation system would be compatible is important.
Absolutely. So I actually want to bring Brian up because he is very familiar with this. Besides being
Hi, I'm Brian Rollins, B-R-I-A-N, R-O-W-L-A-N-D-S. I work for the Parks and Recreation Department. I'm the one that manages the Rose Garden and works with the Garden Club, and because of them, I'm a member. I'm on the board now because they're so awesome. And also like to throw out to the Women's Club who's coming up next. Wonderful people. And but the irrigation, I'm a member too. The irrigation system would is already existing. It just does not work. The drip lines have cracks and cuts and this and that. So we're basically going to just tie into what's there already. And as far as if the city needed to do anything, from the valve out would be all new drip irrigation. And if they needed to change a valve that was working with the city's irrigation system, that would be the only thing they would have to change. So that would answer that question.
Thank you. And then the other question that has come up is the ongoing care and maintenance. It's one thing to install something, but it's like the swim folks. It's like you put the pool in, that's one thing, but really it's the ongoing upkeep that is really important. And then the third point is you described it as off-road. It's kids who not supposed to climb on these little shrubs, but they're just the right size, you know. So
I was one of those kids growing up here. I have to admit, I was up in those bushes. You know, didn't break anything, but yeah.
Any further comments from the commission?
Just one other thought. If people want to join the Valley of the Moon Garden Club and participate, is there a thought that there would be a little plaque or something, nothing huge, but like something small, so that residents could know who's taking care of
we would
and
like
how
to
they
do.
can participate?
Correct. We would like to do some signage, and we would be working with the city on that for sure. And by the way, we have a meeting tomorrow over here at Burlingame Hall at 6:30. So please join.
Thank you.
Besides, there's another big thank you for this. One, if you're ever running out of other ideas or things to do, that little triangle in front of Stables before Highway 12 in West Napa has...
Yes, we have been approached many times for that
okay.
triangle, yes.
Put that on your to-do list. And I will see it tomorrow night. My niece, Jeannie Perales, is the Sonoma Garden, Botanical Garden new director, and I'm speaking, so I'm eager to hear and join you again in Burlingame Hall.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
So if there's no further comments from the commission, we would like to call for public comments.
Hi, I'm Connie Schleyline, and I'm chair of the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission, but I'm speaking for myself, not for the commission. I'm here listening and learning because there's always a lot of collaboration that our two commissions can do. And the Valley of the Moon Garden Club is top notch. They've really brought it for us. So the commission is working on a public art master plan, and with Dave Jahns, we're really looking forward to the Plaza master plan. So as we all work together on all these projects, trying to connect, and I'm coming to your meetings, you come to ours. Would love to invite you to the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission, as well as everyone else that's here, because we're all working together on the beauty of this community. Thank you for all you do.
So it looks like the next step is that we provide recommendations to the staff, and or whether we want to form an ad hoc or just what do we do next?
Yeah, so a few options in front of you, and I think first and foremost, getting a level of comfort with the overall concept of moving this forward. You know, I think there's obviously some moving pieces in that we're going through the historic landscape survey, we have the Plaza master plan, so getting the commission's take on moving forward into the design process on all three elements, I think is the first thing that we're looking forward from a staff perspective. And then heard various comments about specifics within the design, and so I think looking at either forming potentially an ad hoc who could be part of a design review team, and that way you can work with staff to provide feedback to the garden club as they move through the process, and or having some work completed to finalize the design once we have the results of the historic landscape survey, bringing it back at a future meeting, which we'll talk about our schedule towards the end of the meeting, whether that next meeting is June or there's always an opportunity to call a special meeting sooner if the design were to be ready before then, so that we're not having Garden Club wait longer. So I think those are the different directions that you all have in front of you, but mainly looking to see if we're supportive of moving forward with 1, 2, 3 of the zones, and then your level of providing design review through the process. And if we could, on this one, I think would be helpful, since eventually this needs to move forward to City Council for them to adopt it. It would be nice to have a formal recommendation coming from the Commission on this one. And again, it doesn't have to be final. You're not necessarily approving the final design at this point because that hasn't been presented yet. But I think your formal blessing to move forward in concept with this would be helpful.
I move that we move forward, recommend to City Council that they accept the gift, subject to city staff finalizing the design and making it coherent with the historic landscape survey.
We do.
I'll second.
And just before you take the vote, just and I think you could do it in 2 separate actions. If they're, what I'm hearing is that it would move back to staff to work with them. Commission's comfortable not creating an ad hoc at this time. Just want to make sure that element's in there.
I think staff is confident, and they can always call.
Are you ready for a vote? Okay. Commissioner Colarusso?
Yes.
Commissioner Cullinan?
Yes.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Definitely.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Absolutely.
Commissioner Mizuraka?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Tolbert?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Item 5.3, discussion regarding a proposal from the Sonoma Valley Women's Club Foundation to renovate the Italian fountain area within the Plaza Park.
Thank you, Chair Tolbert. I will be taking this item as well. And again, we'll sense some similarities, but again, very different proposal and also at a different stage of the process as well. So similar in nature, we're very grateful to the Sonoma Valley Women's Club who have brought forward this proposal. I know this has been in the works for some time, and discussions have been happening for quite some time. And I think one key component to why the now and the renewed energy, and I will certainly turn it over to the foundation to talk about in more detail, but we are in the midst of the 125th anniversary of the Sonoma Valley Women's Foundation, and they've had a huge part on shaping not only that space, but the plaza and Sonoma as a whole. And so this proposal is being brought forward to renovate a specific area within the plaza. So we're going to be focusing on the Italian fountain area. So this predates, the initial conversations predates my time here. I know I had the opportunity to meet representatives early on in my tenure last summer to talk about this proposal. They've had numerous meetings about this. They're working through the design process. Very similar to what we just heard, recognize that we're going through the historic landscape survey, and this obviously is an area of the plaza that is being looked at in close detail as part of that survey, and also will be rolled into the master plan, as it is one of the key locations within the plaza. And so the concept that the Women's Club Foundation is putting forward includes enhancing landscaping around the fountain area, upgrading irrigation, as well as proposing lighting that would make it a feature in the evening hours as well. Looking at potential improvements to the pathways, that part is still in progress of where those pathway improvements would, as well as some of the hardscape. And when I say hardscape, if you look at that image, looking at potentially redoing some of the pavers in those areas. So those, our understanding, we'll get hopefully some real understanding of when those went in, but we understand those are actually not that old in nature, more in the kind of 80-ish timeline is what we think when those pavers went in.
It's actually
Stamped concrete went in around the 1980s. And another component to it is making some minor but facade upgrades to the fountain so that it is maintained, as well as looking at the pump system so that it's a functioning fountain once again. And so similar, the Women's Club is committed to funding the improvements behind here, and as I understand it, have at least in verbal agreement working with volunteers from Valley of the Moon Garden Club to provide volunteer support in that area as well. And Faye, I don't know if you want me to turn it over to you to go through this, or if you'd like me to move through the concept and then turn it over to you, whichever you prefer.
You can talk about the concept. It's just a concept right now.
So we're this is just in concept, so there's not a specific planting palette. You're going to get a feel for some observations. The one thing I will share that was shared with us is the palm trees that you see within this proposal has now, since the club has determined that that will not be part of their proposal moving forward. They'll still work on modifying the concepts, but we figured these 3D illuminations gives at least a feel for the direction that they're heading in. So I'm going to move through a couple. These are same imagery, just from different angles. And here's a proposed nighttime imagery with some of the uplighting that's being proposed again. Imagine those palm trees not there. And then here's a little bit more
These don't have
specified, and I think Faye Mellows, who will be bringing up to the podium here in just a moment, has an updated version that is sans the palm trees.
Just a quick question for the clerk. Will these additional documents go online with the agenda packet somehow?
It will be in the minutes,
Okay,
and
so they'll be publicly
those
available
will
at
become
some
public before the next meeting. I mean, it will be in the agenda packet.
So looking at next steps here, and then I'll turn it over to Faye and or Melissa to give some additional information. So the way this one varies is, as we shared, this is that we're at concept, not into the specified design. So the Women's Club is committed to waiting until the historic survey is complete before moving forward with their final proposal and design. So what we're here to discuss tonight is, again, the concept of the Women's Club and the foundation undertaking this project, looking to beautify, looking to enhance, as I understand it, open to feedback, design, direction, and similar would need to finalize long-term maintenance agreements, and kind of the same actions are in front of you of the option to, knowing that we're earlier in the design phase, would this project be part of that design review process, or based on timing, good opportunity could be to bring this back at a future meeting based on your comments here this evening. Before we get any further, I would like to turn it over and introduce Faye Mellows, who's the president of the Sonoma Women's Club Foundation, to provide more information and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, it's Faye, F-A-Y-E, Mellows, M-E-L-L-O-S. No W in my last name. So I gave you all a brief history of the Women's Club only because I want you to understand how we got to where we are right now. We started this process about 2 years ago with the city. Our goal was to beautify our fountain, which is the basalt fountain in front of City Hall. At that time, one of your council members told us there was going to be a big plan for the water on the plaza, and they were asking us to hold off on our fountain. So this all was getting ready for the 125th anniversary of the Sonoma Valley Women's Club. We started in 1901. The 11 women from Sonoma started the Sonoma Valley Women's Club with the goal of civic improvement and plaza beautification. So these women actually went out every single month and raised money to build our plaza. So they put in the sidewalks, they put in the trees, they put in fountains, they put in benches. They did the first bear flag monument, I believe. So it's all in that little thing that I gave you, the little information packet. So in getting ready for our 125th anniversary, we went over to the Historic Society and we saw our minutes, and we started reading the minutes from 1901 to 1905, and we realized that these women were dead set on getting the plaza right and getting it in there. Multiple times they went to talk to the trustees, which that's what the commissioners were called in those days, and they would get thrown out and they would come back. And so we thought, wow, our 125th anniversary, let's do plaza beautification. So we wanted our fountain. We were steered away from our fountain. We walked over and the city said, look at the Italian fountain. It's really been left, it's really derelict, really is what it is. And the last time the Italian fountain was done was during the 125th anniversary for the city of Sonoma. And that was like 1985, I think, 84 or 85. So that was the last time it was really dealt with. So we just started, taking a look at the history. We got a lot of the history from the Sebastiani family, from the Historic Society. And, basically we're not changing the footprint. We're not doing anything to the fountain except maintaining it, okay, making it what it's supposed to be. Right now, the city has to fill that fountain with a hose. I think, Brian, you fill it with a hose. So hopefully, we can get one of those floats that everybody has in their swimming pool that when the water goes down, it fills up, right? That type of stuff. We've talked to many, many people, architects. We've talked to people who are historians with Italian gardens, that type of thing. We're really anxious to get the American survey back because we think that's going to tell us some more of the history. The fountain was actually brought to Sonoma during the Depression by Samuele Sebastiani. He had bought the Dawn Theater because it had burnt down, and he hired a lot of people in Sonoma to work, and he had money because he apparently was making wine during Prohibition. So he had a lot of money, and so he looked out the window and he said, hey, I want some Italian here, like I'm from Lucca, I'm from that area of Italy, so he brought two fountains, one for the plaza and one for his home over on 4th Street. So we understand the historic significance of this fountain, and the garden's probably not so historic, but when the fountain was first put in, it had boxwood and pea gravel around it, and that was all. So we've got multiple pictures of the fountain, the way it looked when it was first put in. So we're hoping we can find out when the wall went in. We're not going to take it out or anything. We would like to know when that wall went in, and those concrete pavers and that type of thing. Probably in 1984. The Kiwanis Club, really, there's a couple of plaques there. The fountain was redone, I think, in the 1950s, and then it was redone again by the Kiwanis Club in 1984 or 5 for the 125th of the city. So, that's what we're doing. Approximately $175,000 to get this all done. We have our case for support ready to go. We're going to start massive fundraising. We fundraised all last year. We raised, close to $35,000, let's say, last year. So we have a bit of money to still raise. We feel like we're going to, as a courtesy, we're going to go to some of the founding families and ask them about money. But we're pretty confident that we can raise the money and get this done very quickly. Melissa, did you have anything to say? Okay. This is Melissa Mulcahy. She also is on the foundation board of the Sonoma Valley Women's Club. Oh, yeah, and we're working in conjunction with, in partnership with the Valley of the Moon, and we're going to be working on the maintenance. We're going to our designer Petra Longley is going to give us a maintenance schedule for the garden once it's decided what we're going to do and what we're going to plant. And we are working very closely with Valley of the Moon Garden Club on this project.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Thank you very much. I love the idea. Just three things. I am curious to know if the plants that you're proposing are ones that you expect to thrive in our climate going forward, like drought tolerant, damage resistant, nuisance friendly, etc. Do you want me to just tell you those two things too?
Yeah.
Or do you want to take it one at a time?
I can take that right
Great,
away. Yeah,
great.
that has been one of the most important things that we really are looking at, is we want it to be old world Italian, and we want it to be plants that will thrive in Sonoma. So we know the boxwood does well. We know the cypress trees do well. We know lavender does well. So it's going to be old world Italian plantings.
Like Southern Italian would probably be.
Yeah, that's why we had the palm trees in there, but we've decided to take those out because they're very Mediterranean, But anyway, so we have actually met with a lot of different people who are somewhat experts in Italian gardens and historic Italian gardens. So we've gotten some really great ideas, and we're also talking to Brian and Ted because they work on the Plaza, and we understand the importance of having these plantings be not high maintenance. They can't be high maintenance because, the people who take care of our Plaza can't spend extra time taking care of the Italian garden.
Okay.
So, yes.
One of the, I've lived here a very long time, and in my mind, over time, I'm sorry to say, as much as I love that fountain area, what I often see there, especially in the evenings, is people sitting around smoking. Yeah, so I just wonder if that could be kept in mind. Maybe, I don't know if there's anything that can be done in the design to help ameliorate that kind of thing, make it less compatible for people to sit around smoking. I don't think it's illegal to smoke on a Plaza, yeah.
No.
But it's sort of a, anyway, I'll leave it at that. And then a lemon tree sounds great, but do you think there'll be any lemons on it? Because people will take them.
That's a good question. Yeah, they're going to be, it's going to be all surrounded by boxwood. And so we're hoping, the city has pretty much already told us that if we get that approved, those planters have to be heavy concrete, and they can probably be painted terracotta. They can't really be a terracotta planter. We've been thinking about this for almost 2 years, so we've had a lot of different back and forth and everything. So at this point right now, we're on hold until we get the American Historic Survey. And we think that's going to tell us a little bit more about potentially what was there in the beginning. Personally, I believe that simple is better. And most Italian gardens are very simple. They're very green and they're very simple. And I think that's probably what we want to try to accomplish.
I have a comment about uplighting. It's kind of an ecological disaster there's a lot of life at night, and uplighting is something that, all our street lights went from different varieties, but had light that went out to the side, and we retrofitted everything, so lighting should go down and not affect the birds and the animals that are, their habitat is determined by, like owls. Can you imagine looking at a car coming towards you with LED lights? If you were an owl, wouldn't be good.
Yeah, dark skies are really important to us. We talk about that a lot. I'm not an expert on dark skies, but we're researching that because when you look at the plaza and you look at Sonoma, there are lights around the plaza, and they typically go off fairly early, like around 10 o'clock at night. So the goal here really is not to damage the birds or anybody who's flying around at night, but just to kind of bring attention to the garden. If you'll notice on those plans, right now the boxwood, it just runs right along the sidewalk. So it's very kind of almost claustrophobic. It's sort of like a cave. It just runs right along, like you can look at the bottom of this, it runs right along. What we're thinking of doing is opening it up and moving the boxwood out a little bit, and then very much like what the Valley of the Moon Garden Club is doing as far as layering up. So when you walk out of the Sebastiani Theater and you're walking and you're looking across the street, you actually see that there is a fountain there and there's a beautiful garden. Like right now, people don't even know it's there. You cannot believe how many people say to us, "Oh, is there a fountain over there?" So, you know, we're just trying to illuminate a little bit, not a lot, Patricia. The other thing is we'd like to have some lighting on the fountain in the evening so that when people do come out of the Sebastiani Theater or after they have dinner, or maybe when they're just walking around the plaza, there will be, you know, it'll be highlighted and low voltage lighting. Yeah. Yeah, I understand what you're talking about, yeah. Do you have a question, John?
Thank you very much. I love the history of the Women's Garden Club here in Sonoma.
I believe the garden club is 75 years old? 75 years old now. And my understanding, and we're trying to find this out for sure, the women of the Sonoma Valley Women's Club, the garden club was an outshoot of our club. Yeah. So we're all getting back together and working on, you know, beautifying our plaza, which is what we did in the beginning. Any other questions for me?
Yeah, one question I have, I think it would be helpful to see the footprint of what you're proposing in relation to the rest of the plaza.
The footprint doesn't change at all. The footprint is already there. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, it looks like there's a lot going on in your drawings and so forth. That, but you're saying this is going to be in the same
It's
spot.
the exact same footprint. Nothing. We haven't changed one thing. Yeah. And I do have blueprints. So if you want to look at the blueprints later.
Any further questions from commissioners? Then any public comments?
Hi, my name is Scott Braun, SCOTTBRAUN, and I live in Sonoma on Spearing Road. I happened to be sitting in the plaza the day that I think it was Brian and Teddy probably and a group of other folks came and started studying the area. I happen to be a horticultural gardener as well, and I have a degree from Stanford University in urban design. I've worked in urban design as a volunteer in Sonoma County for 30 years, most notably with the Petaluma extension in the, along the river and Warehouse South areas. So I also have spent the last 12 years, I started coming to Sonoma in 1968 when I was 2 years old. I moved here about 13 years ago. I've spent many, many, many hours sitting at the Italian fountain. So can we get the slide back to the next steps? No, there was that one. Thank you. So up in this picture takes you across the street to the Sebastiani Theater. The quadrant on the left gets full sun all day. The other three quadrants get dappled shade all day because since the 30s, we've got 50-foot sycamore trees, at least 50 foot, probably 70 foot, some of them, along the back of that create basically a shade garden area in 3/4 of this little hexagon or octagon that we've got here. So I have real concerns about the planting. Needs to be very suitable to these different microclimates that we have in a very small area based on shade exposure. One of the other things that's been brought up is the concrete pavers, stamped pavers. I agree they're ugly. I don't like them. I would have taken them out when I first got here and started hanging out at the Plaza. But if anybody's seen the forecast for the coming week, concrete is a very, very carbon intensive material. And I think we can maybe live without new paving there for another few years until that concrete really needs to be replaced. You know, previous city councils have signed on to the Earth Charter, which means that we take it into consideration in all our decisions, the needs of the earth and the climate and the people of the earth. And so I, for one, would choose personally not to tear up a perfectly good concrete area just for aesthetics alone. The guy's name who built those benches, by the way, is Dick Frost. His son and grandchildren still live in town, and I know them fairly well, and they're very proud of the fact that their grandfather did this work. And I will say from a builder's perspective, concrete that hasn't cracked at all in 45 years is pretty good work. So I'd like to honor that, even though it may not be, quote, historical. In terms of the plants, one of the things I loved coming to Sonoma as a kid was the history. That was one of the main reasons my family came here, was to teach us about history of California. History isn't perfect. The side of the barracks are wavy and mottled, and chips are falling off and stuff, and I don't think anybody would propose to go and put concrete siding all over the side of the barracks, that would be an improvement. And I look at this.
I have to interrupt you because there's a time limit on your comments.
I'll wrap
if you
up.
want to wrap it up?
I'll wrap up quickly. When I look at the plants that are there now, the surviving cherry trees and the boxwood hedge that's there, it's not perfect. It's funky, it's irregular, it's whimsical, it's unique. It's something that people come to Sonoma to see, is something that's not perfect, but something that's maybe been there a while and is cool. The other thing is, I've been told all the cherry trees, but maybe a couple of them are going to be taken out. And if you go out in the next week, you'll see hundreds of people over the next weeks taking pictures in front of those cherry trees. If you're there on a Tuesday night or any afternoon when there are people crowding the plaza, you'll see families napping in the shade of those cherry trees. You'll see kids sitting in them, the ones that are climbable. They're about this far off the ground. So don't tell the city attorney. I said it. And you get kids barreling through to that fountain. They'll be hopping the hedges, they'll be trampling things. You kind of need to, as a gardener, I've had to redesign for dogs, because I had dogs tearing through a garden. I let the dogs do their thing, and then I planted around them accordingly. So kids, history, microclimates, concrete, funding. The guys from the park have been dumping pennies just over that little seat for 40 years. If you do a dig, they're going to fund half this thing. I'm really happy that the Women's Club wants to take this on. I just do have some concerns about the current plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, recommendations?
Yeah, so similar, although I know there's, at least from the Women's Club, there's some more work to do to finalize the design once we get the historic survey back. So again, similar options in front of you. I think what we'd be looking for is your level of support, again, for moving forward with this concept at this point. Knowing there's another step to finalize the design, given the timeline. So for everyone's context, we've referenced that historic landscape survey several times tonight. It is, and I should have led with this, so it kicked off in mid-January, anticipated is about 4 months for completion, 4 months in total. So we're coming up on close to halfway through, so we'd expect results back on that hopefully in the late April, early May timeframe. Potentially mid-May. We'll have to see how the results come back. We've given them a whole lot of information. They've been to visit the site, and now we're waiting to get information back. And so the timing of that completion with the final design may line up well to have a design come back to you all at your next commission if you so choose, or again, you have the opportunity to assign an ad hoc to work on that behind the scenes. So again, looking for general level of support to moving it forward. No, we're not at the point of having a final design in front of us yet this evening, but those are the kind of the paths you have forward. And so similar, the level of this, especially the anticipated dollar amount, this is something that City Council would be ultimately accepting that donation, that you have the opportunity to make a formal recommendation once seeing that final design, if you so choose.
So just to clarify, so both projects that we're looking at will be donations. They'll be separately fundraised to develop these projects.
That's correct. All three, in fact, are being, as it currently stands, fully fundraised by the entities bringing them forward, or separate donating partners. No city funds right now are currently proposed as part of the installation, site preparation, though we will be committing to supporting long-term maintenance.
So we're looking for a proposal to move forward?
Just to sum up, I think where we are, and please confirm or correct, Dave, we have the Sonoma Valley Women's Club who's looking to make a pretty substantial gift to the city, and has already kind of been moved from one fountain to another. But we don't have a final proposal on what that is going to be. We have some concepts. So as I understand it, we're looking to basically a show of support for, subject to a final proposal, we would recommend to the council that they accept that gift. Is that a fair summary?
I think close. I think you don't need to go so far as to recommend to council to accept the gift yet. If you're anticipating to, if you'd like to see the final design, I think that's where we are tonight. So if you would like to share your support so that we give the Women's Club the green light to move forward with finalizing design based on the historic landscape survey, and giving them the green light to move into fundraising capabilities.
And the second question then would be whether we, as a commission, feel we need an ad hoc, or whether we just want to hear about it in June as a entire body. Is that fair?
Correct. I think the benefits to if you were to create an ad hoc is that allows you we can give them real-time feedback as they're moving through it. So if questions arise, you as commissioners can provide feedback to that versus waiting until a commission meeting to have the same format. And again, staff will be involved in that process regardless. We intend to keep working with, should the commission be supportive of it, we intend to keep working with them so we can keep momentum moving forward on this.
So are we looking for volunteers for the ad hoc?
That's if you'd like to. So I think first and foremost is if you would like an ad hoc, well, I said first and foremost, I think looking to see if there's commission support for the concept to move it forward, and if you would like to form an ad hoc to support with help with design review, or if you would simply like to see the final design come back to you all.
I think I'd like to see the final design come back to the commission.
And maybe wait for an ad hoc until the final design has come back? Or do you want to do an ad hoc now?
I'm not quite sure. I think they need to reevaluate when they see the historic resource evaluation on how they can modify their design if necessary. And so if we have an ad hoc now, they have a process they need to go through.
Totally agree. It seems like it's too early for an ad hoc to me. Not quite there yet.
Yeah, I don't think we need an ad hoc. I think we're supportive of going forward with the final design with the comments that have been made, including the recent ones from Scott, is it? That if you can take some of those into account and see how the final design might address those, that would be welcome.
So we don't need a vote on that, or do we?
We don't. I think as long as there's general consensus that there is support for the overall concept and that the commission would like to see final design based on feedback from the American landscape architect design and also comments received this evening. Does that give you enough direction to move forward?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can move on to the next item is, unless we want to take a short break, or power through. What?
I did bring
Okay.
cookies. Let's do 10. We have cookies.
10 minutes?
Great.
5?
Let's make it 10.
Make it 10. Well, how about we're back here at 5 to 8,
Well, it depends.
till 7:55.
Thank you, Chair Tolbert. And we have, 3 more items. The last 2, I promise, will be very quick ones. So before we get to those 2 items, though, we are going to spend some time talking about our potential 2026 goals and work plan. And so it's my understanding that this commission hasn't formally adopted a work plan since their existence. That's not to say that important work hasn't happened here. In fact, moved some pretty significant initiatives forward in recent years. But the intent behind a work plan is this will create kind of a shared direction and a prioritization of your work as commissioners. This doesn't mean these are the only things that you're going to talk about. This certainly doesn't mean these are the only things that staff that you're collaborating with, the Parks and Recreation staff, Public Works staff, other city staff are going to be working on. What this does is saying that based on City Council's priorities, which they recently adopted, and some which are in the realm of Parks, Recreation, Open Space, what this does is it shows that you're supporting City Council in their work. It supports and complements work that staff is happening and allows for open forums and regular feedback for the community to be involved. Essentially, they know the work that you're heading out on the future year, and they can provide feedback and attend meetings and talk to you all in the community. You can bring that information back, and we can have, I think, a streamlined direction of where we're heading. I will share it's not uncommon for a goal to carry over from year to year, and I know one thing that's come up in other commissions as well is a little bit around the timing of the goals, because here we are in March, and these are currently on a calendar year, so you really have about 8.5 months to complete your annual goals. And so we're going to look a little bit at how in the future we may be able to get these in front of you a little bit sooner. You can have some goals discussions. Part of it is contingent on City Council adopting their goals, and they typically do that at the beginning of 2026. So starting with City Council goals, these are the 5 areas that City Council has adopted. And so they had an initial conversation on January 30th to talk about these areas, and they formally adopted these council goal priority areas February 18th, I believe. And so you'll see within there, once again, there was Parks and Recreation is included in their annual goals. They've added in the arts element. So it's Parks, Arts, Recreation, Community Services, and for the sake of our discussion, even that'll be the focus of the goal areas that we're putting in front of you. So I won't go through each of these. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read them. This is the Parks, Arts, Recreation, Community Services goals section from City Council, and within that are sub-goals. And so once this was adopted, for those of you that are on the commission in 2025, you may recall that you appointed an ad hoc subcommittee at your December meeting to be kind of essentially on call once council adopted their goals to put together a framework to bring back to you this evening, which is where we are now. So Commissioner Tolbert and Cullinan served on that ad hoc committee. Initially, Chair Isetta was on there. She unfortunately had to resign from the commission. So the 3 of us had a chance to meet at the beginning of last week to go through these council goals, to talk about some of the previous work the commission has done, and put together a framework to start your conversation tonight. And so, sorry, one of those hang over the side. I was like, I swear there was 5 of them, and it looked like 6 there, but you can see one of them just hung over on the slide. So picked 5 areas to focus on from those city council goals and your conversations, and put a little bit of a narrative to it. So what we're looking to do this evening is talk about, you have opportunity to weigh in on the council goals and how they impact you. Look at this proposal, certainly can make modifications, recommendations, depending on how far we go down to potentially modifying what you may ask as these get brought back at either a special meeting or another future meeting. If there's major changes you'd like to see and you think there's more research done, or if there's wordsmithing, or we can come to an agreement on the goal here this evening, we can adopt and move forward this evening. So the 5 areas that the ad hoc is proposing is supporting the upcoming Plaza master plan process. Second is advancing the development of a park on the west side of Sonoma. assessing community-wide activity needs and identifying programming gaps. And sorry, there's a second identify there. Support the implementation of urban forestry initiatives identified in the tree canopy study and inventory. And those first four are coming directly from the council goals. The fifth one is a little bit of an addition, and this is coming from, staff had an interest in this as well, but there was also a level of talking about connection and park development in the city council goals. So the fifth one is leading community visioning for Depot Park. And so, again, looking at what the intent of the conversation is tonight is for you to all have an open dialogue about this, talk through the recommended framework. If there's agreement at the end of it, we can look to adopt. If you'd like staff to go back and bring additional information to you, we certainly can do that. So I'm going to leave my comments fairly brief, but happy to answer any, and also allow for Chair Tolbert and Commissioner Cullinan to provide input on why we landed on those as our initial framework. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Any comments from our commissioners?
Go ahead.
After you, Joe.
Thank you for doing this ad hoc committee and the work. Of the five that you listed there, the support and implementation of urban forestry, let me put my glasses back on, urban forestry initiative identified in the tree canopy study, that also shades into the green and blue links infrastructure issues. But my suggestion here is that this would lead to an ad hoc committee with the city joint tree committee that's already been behind this move for quite some time. So that would be somebody from this commission with the Climate Action Commission and the Planning Commission to meet with Jennifer Gates, who is the staff supporting that, at least has been, that we take that item and say, yes, we like this, but we realize that we need to do this through a joint city tree committee.
Yeah, it's excellent comments, and thank you. One thing I failed to mention is a common strategy on these goals would be to assign ad hoc committees to each of these. I think it's important that this is seen as this is the commission's work plan, and so for you all to be involved in those. And that one specifically, and so if that's of interest to the commission to move forward, we will need to work with the existing joint tree committee and make sure that the other commissions are on board. I think the intent, and Patricia and Charlie, please correct me if I'm offline, was that even with the joint tree, that there was work, we knew that there was going to be tasks that come from those discussions that would be specific to Parks and Recreation, basically come back and then work on those initiatives specifically with our commission as well. But the intent was to have overlap with the other commissions, indeed.
And I would like to volunteer for that ad hoc from the Pros Commission if it's available.
I love the work that's been done. I agree with most of these. I feel like the assess community-wide activity needs and lead community visioning is outreach. And I feel like that normally is what the city does. We don't usually, Pros doesn't usually do the outreach in my experience. So I feel like this is a lot for 1 year, especially considering that like wrap up may well be in December. If this is indeed for just this year, I feel like this is a lot to do, but like I say, I think those two things sound to me like outreach and might not be in our milieu, personally. If those two were removed or at least partnered with the city, because we don't do outreach. I mean, I guess it's Sarah usually has her finger on the pulse of all that, so that's my comment on that. And then in regards to especially the urban forestry initiatives, I do think it's really important, as John said, that all three of those commissions can coordinate so that nobody's duplicating the work. And there's like everyone has their specialty. You know, like climate action has like this science base, and so I think it would be really important, anything going on with this urban forestry, tree canopy stuff, there's be some kind of real joint communication.
Well, I think these goals will be ongoing, and that we don't have to complete them in a calendar year, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. And so I think the intent is that there's, in any given year, you can make progress on goals and make strides, and then some instances they'll be very specific, right? Like we're going to implement this specific event. And just to answer your questions, Commissioner Mizraka, you all certainly can be involved in outreach. The city will, with all of these, and quite frankly, make progress on all of the council goals. I think the intent behind those two was that there would be an ad hoc that would work in conjunction with the city staff so that it is hopefully a truly representative visioning process that is not just through our normal traditional our channels. And so the ad hoc has the ability to help formulate what those questions are, what those processes look like. I think the intent is these are further more so than just your standard survey that would be pushed out through the city. But that was kind of the intent behind it. Again, not saying they have to stay, but that was the reason behind it, was that this can be a way to look at, especially for something like Depot Park, where we don't have a master plan on the books for Depot Park, but there's been lots of discussion in the community about the future of Depot Park, and so that's an opportunity for the commission to take that initiative as an opportunity to lead it if they so choose.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I was wondering why we wouldn't be doing outreach or engagement, community engagement. I mean, I certainly would be happy to be involved in that myself. I actually see the Plaza Park master plan and the visioning for Depot Park as potentially related. Is that something that has been considered?
It has, and there's lots of talks about connectivity. So they could be related. Here's why they think that the intent is that they're separated. So we actually have, we have a carved out project in the master plan that's currently going through a request for proposals, where we're working with potentially bringing on a consultant that is specific to Plaza Park. And so part of that proposal, we asked that they look at ways that it connect, but wasn't part of the scope to connect the two, knowing that that would become a very large, expensive project. And so Depot specifically is not part of the Plaza Park master planning process. Doesn't mean they are not intertwined, interconnected.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is if it would make sense if there's an ad hoc committee for either the two of them together or two separate ad hoc committees, to find a way when we're getting into community engagement, like if we want to have a meeting. I'm thinking of the way the Sebastiani meeting happened not too long ago. I don't remember the exact date. And candidly, I think that was a situation where the city probably could have done community engagement earlier in the process instead of publishing this map and then getting into community engagement when people were a bit riled up. But I can see a situation in which there was a community engagement event where people were able to brainstorm on both of those two subjects together, whether it's one ad hoc or two or however that works. Just sort of throwing that out for consideration. And I'd be happy to be involved in those two processes if there is an ad hoc.
Can I make a comment? The plaza is high use. A lot of people. It has businesses around it, and the Depot Park, where the museum is it's used by less by tourism, and so it's and it's adjacent to the ball fields, and so it really has a whole different character. And I think that to me that I see it as a very different part from the plaza.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm going to retract that comment, because now that you say that, I think about the people using the depot are more, I mean, the clubs, Bocce and forgive me, the other one, Tong, people who are regular users are
Right.
more likely to be at the depot as opposed to tourists and larger groups.
Right, and even those guys, they come and they play and they leave. That's more, and so it's the park itself. There's a lot of use of the picnic tables. There's a lot of local kids and stuff. So and they're it's more associated with the sports element.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
that makes sense.
Yeah. So I'll kind of add to that too, as being part of the Field of Dreams board. There are plans to completely redo these fields as well. So I think that's an opportunity that you can really help partner with the Field of Dreams, which is city property, Depot Park, and kind of having that all kind of be a unified area. And then even the Mason Avi house in the back of that is a really nice piece of property that could be very beneficial to Depot Park as well, which I think could help. I know the ball fields and Arnold Field are all county property, but you do have a lot of people there that are kind of mixed using, like you talked about with the sports fields, and there's a lot of kids in this town. So I'd be happy to help on that since my relationship with the Field of Dreams as well. Kind of going back to the which one is it? On the recreation side of this, I think that's kind of something new to Sonoma. So I do think as a parent with kids, having it kind of something a little easier to kind of, all right, where is registration? Just kind of having a unifying goal for the city to help not only kids, but just all recreation stuff would be very beneficial. I know we just got an email on the Field of Dreams board asking for all summer camps. I think that's a wonderful place to start. It's like, all right, if a parent can just come into town, all right, boom, this is where I go for soccer. And it's just, I think that's a great step. So great job on that one. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to circle back here. In hearing what you just said about, we're not necessarily looking at wrapping up things at the end of this year, which is good because we've got, 3 meetings left, 3 official meetings. But something that I've noticed, and I'm going to give this example. A few years ago, I was talking to the city council at one of their goals meetings about the fact that not a lot of attention is paid to open space. And we are Parks, Rec, and Open Space. I mean, we never talk about it, honestly, until I bring it up, usually. I think there's a problem with that. And for example, that was a few years ago. They put it on their short list of goals. Nothing got done, with the exception of one thing that I am trying to push through for the Overlook Trail. And the year passed, the goal is gone. So I would like to see some sort of quantifiable goal. Instead of a general goal about the park master planning process, let's say what do we want to accomplish this year in that regard for each of these priorities / goals. Because I think it's really easy for these things to slide right on next to the next year, and then we're on to different goals and et cetera. And I think that's I see it as one of the problems in the communication between commissions and the city council and getting things actually accomplished. You can set goals forever if you want, but especially if they're defined as in 1 year, I think we need to be more specific.
Back to the Depot Park, even though it may be 2 different groups of people that use it, I think its proximity to the plaza, it just makes sense to bring them together as much as possible. Basically, what's between them is the state park and then a big parking lot. And I walk that every day. That's the dog walking route we take. And it just seems like a real natural thing if we could bring the flow plaza to the Depot Park, to the farmer's market, to the bike path. It just makes sense to me.
So I'm going to make another comment. Sorry, but there is a problem with the state park's parking lot because it's not really pedestrian friendly. I mean, we all go through it, but it's not a pedestrian pathway. And a few years ago, as part of a signage project that I did for the Historical Society, we were trying to identify where the museum was and everything. And I wanted to put signs up where people, at the spot where the driveway for the barracks parking lot, and the current city public works guy, I mean, we had the signs made, they wouldn't let us do it. And I think that having better signage on First Street East would be a good way of connecting to the bike path. The signage identified the bike path and Vallejo's home. You know, people come in the depot and go, is this Vallejo's home? It's like, no. And I mean, it's kind of a joke, but it's not. And so I think that having on both First West and First East of identifying and getting people, you know, that it's almost the same amount of space. You know, I mean, the walking distance is coming through the middle.
That sounds like a great idea, and you're making me think of those street signs that we have where, I think mostly on the east side when you're kind of walking on Napa Street, where there's the street sign, and on top of that there's like, this way to Sebastiani Winery, this way, I mean, to pile up the street signs if that's possible. Vallejo's home, etc.
You guys are step one of the first visioning process. You're already underway. I just wanted to respond to one comment about the specification and quantifiable, and I couldn't agree more. I think making sure that once adopted, I think that's the intent of creating the ad hocs, is coming up with, so let's say, for example, determine to move forward with assessing community-wide activity needs. Okay, what are the tools? And so when we get to December, what have we said we want to accomplish between now and then? What is something that could be seen as a ongoing goal? I think, you know, with like the master plan, that one itself, I think that one is tangible. Essentially, we're saying we want to deliver the master plan document by supporting it. But I think the intent is if these or others that you come up with are the overarching goals and priorities, assigning ad hocs and then letting that ad hoc come up with their specified ways to accomplish those so that they're not vague, so we can get to December and say, okay, we've done this, this, and this, we still have this, this, and this to do. Not that we've generally talked about this, but we don't know if we've made progress or not. So I think point well taken.
So maybe you can clarify what are the limitations on numbers for ad hocs now that we have a full board?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Tolbert. So for those coming on board and those like myself who need a reminder from time to time, an ad hoc committee, what that is so it's less than a quorum or a majority. So it's 3 members or less. You can have an ad hoc of 1 that works directly with staff. You can have 1, 2, or 3. You cannot have 4. And so what the ad hoc committees allow us to do is continue to work in between meetings. So we can meet, we can talk about these, we bring information back to the commission, you can talk to members of the community. What we can't do is make hard and fast votes on things in those ad hocs, right? So it allows us to work in between meetings, bring back information so we can have productive discussions here, move into final consideration. So 3 members or less, long-winded way of saying that.
So it makes logical sense that we form 5 ad hoc committees, 1 for each of these topics, unless people see that we could combine a couple of them.
I would agree, at least having an ad hoc committed to, and whether that's, you know, the same ad hoc that's working on 2 of them, but at least having an ad hoc committed to them. And I think before we just get to that step, I just want to 2 fronts, make sure we do open up for public comment, and also just make sure that we're in alignment on the overarching priorities. I've heard some interest in potentially removing some or looking at other focal areas.
I have some comments. Leaving aside the Plaza Park master plan, the first one, one is to proceed with the development of the West MacArthur, 5th Street West Park, and also visioning for the Depot Park improvement. And my concern, I communicated this with the chair and with Parks Director Dave Jahns. My concern is that we had a study of the parks needs assessments in 2022, and they looked at 12 or 14 of the city parks and said, what are the maintenance needs, what are the needs of improvement? And this was supposed to be brought back to the Pros Commission to prioritize that list and keep track of how those were made. What we got instead was a map that said we need to put a new park at MacArthur and Fifth Street West, and we've never really followed up on how many needs of those that were identified have been addressed. And so my concern is, before we go out, especially with the public, and say, oh, we're going to do a new park, and we're going to do this, we don't need an ad hoc for this, I don't think. I think we need a report from Public Works to say, can you take this chart and update us on what maintenance needs that you identified 4 years ago? Where are we? Have they been satisfied, and how much do we need to give some priority to that? And that would be really helpful for combining, if you're going to look at an ad hoc for the new parks, West Side MacArthur, and also maybe the Depot Park. So that's my suggestion, that we need to, before we get too far down on those two goals, let's find out where we are with what we promised to do, and what you're saying, set goals, Jess. I mean, we've set those, and we haven't really come back to them. So I think I'm suggesting that we agendize and invite Public Works to come to our next pros meeting and update us on how the needs assessment is, how much progress has been made, and what needs to be done, and how can we help them complete that.
Just to move things faster than the next meeting, would it be useful to roll that assessment into, or that review in with the MacArthur and Fifth? If we did an ad hoc for that, have that ad hoc get a report from.
Sure, either way.
And then we can just sort of move a little bit faster rather than waiting until June before we even start an ad hoc. When we're halfway through the year. Okay. On a goal that the city council has been pretty specific about.
Yeah, one of the issues with the West Side Park at MacArthur is there's funding that if we don't use it, we lose it. So, and I don't know what the specific I don't know the specific deadline, but it's something that we need to at least make progress on.
And I can chime in a little bit on that. So there is dedicated funds from Quimby Fund. So it's from the developments that are around there. They're dedicated to the development of that park space. And I can share, I think it's of where the commission wants to focus their efforts and works. I know with it being identified as a city council goal, that's something that we as staff have a charter to move forward, at least the visioning process for that. And so there is funds. I'll find out the time of when you have to utilize it. Again, it doesn't have to be used to construct the park by end of this year, because obviously that would put us in quite the rush. But it has to be committed towards, and that can be used towards the visioning, the design, and progress being made on it.
The West Side Park, it does sound like there's some controversy. We got those two community comments about what it needs to be. How much work has been done on assessing the community's wants and needs?
That's a good question. I know there's been some initial outreach. In my mind, that's whether that's happened or not, that's step one, right? That's going to be part of when we say we're creating that vision. To me, that's driven by community, and so that's part of that planning process. Is in whether that happened 2-3 years ago, I think it would behoove us for that to not happen again. Things change. We have new members of the community. People's priorities change. Other impacts have come to the community. So, to me, that has to be the driver of that visioning. Is that there's community outreach, and to me, that's in the way of different formats. Having conversations on site with people. We can push information out so that people can submit comments. Perhaps it's forums here at our commission, just giving people different opportunities to weigh in.
So that's potentially a third outreach-related goal/priority. So maybe a discussion, or maybe if we had an idea of, like, I have an idea of what the city does for outreach. They did those, I don't know if they're called word maps. People say the kinds of things they want to have in the park, like dog park or playground or whatever, and then they make a graphic that shows you, what are the main priorities. But it seems like maybe a reminder, especially with the new people, of what we can ask the city to do, like as far as outreach goes and community, and what part of that is paid for by the city, and do we need to hire a firm to do these assessments of what the community wants? I mean, maybe just a reminder of what tools are available.
Yeah, it's very dependent. It's project by project. So we do have, a public information officer, one person who helps amplify a lot of messages. A lot of, so probably those word dots that were done with visioning. If we're talking about Olson Park, that is typically that had been a consultant leading that. That's not the city putting that together. And so the monies that we have for Fifth Street, typically when you develop a park, you're going to bring on a firm to help you with design, and so they support it, but we as a commission have the opportunity to help craft and guide how that's done. There's lots of different ways you can do community outreach, and so I think when we're looking at these goals, these aren't just things that we say, okay, we want the city to do that. I think these are goals that you want to actually be part of creating how that looks. And I think we have the opportunity to look at visioning a little bit differently than we have for other parks.
There's already a contract for that.
Yes, so the same firm that was brought on to help with Olson Park Land Culture is already under contract. They've already started, I think, initial designs, and I think it's been at least a year and a half.
On
or so.
which location?
The 5th Street West
Oh, the Fifth-
location, yes.
And I recall that there was community outreach for what people wanted to see there, what dog park, or kids playgrounds, or shade, or whatever. And I believe they did a fair amount of that, and there was feedback of 20 or 30. I don't recall specifically, but
Yeah, and that'll be good.
but
That'll be that we would roll exactly into this. I think it's picking up where that left off, and I know this has been talked about for several years. So really taking the top off and moving this forward. So again, if any of these that you say, most of these are on staff's charter to move forward. So if there's an area where you said, you know what, that's better suited for staff to move it forward, we'd rather focus on something else as a commission, that's acceptable too. It should be in alignment with city council goals, though. I will share that. That's part of the process, and their charter to you all is their advisory committees.
Does it make sense at this point? I don't know. On the development of the park on the west side of Sonoma, the MacArthur, 5th Street West, we know that there's a firm designing consulting, but we have a public comment that the neighbors in that would much like to have part of that park be a dog off-leash park area. Does the design firm already have that information? Is that coming back to us, or should we give more direction on that?
So I don't think we should give direction tonight on that since it's not agendized, but any public comments like that would be rolled into the process. And so I think that's a key reason why we'd want to, open the door for public comment and public feedback to happen at least a second time based on time passing, and we want to make sure that all information is received on that front.
Is it possible for staff to disseminate the original study on that site?
Yeah, quite frankly, I'm not sure how in-depth that original study. I think there was some initial outreach done, but there certainly hasn't been as far as I know, there hasn't been a design created for that space yet. But yes, absolutely, when we will find that information, we can share that.
And how old is this study? Did you say?
The one for the new park? That's within the last year. They did Olson Park, and now they're pivoting. I think, is that correct?
It hasn't happened in my time here, so it's been at least, I know that's not very long. I know it hasn't happened in the last 6 months. I think it was in the early parts of 2025 or end of 24, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll find that out. Yeah, that's not.
It is. It's not. I mean, I just wanted to be sure that it wasn't so old that, because there's the mobile homes that are over there that previously they were for 55 and over, and now they're families. So I want to be sure that those families are also included in the design.
And if it's only, as recently as 2024, do we really need to redo it? I mean, I guess it depends on what it says. Anyway.
I know there was a lot of input from the mobile home parks.
Oh, good.
And a lot of people really wanted it because of lack of shade in that area and being able to get out in some green space. It was after Mockingbird, but before Hummingbird. So Mockingbird's the one on Hayes and Hummingbird is the one on the corner.
So for the sake of conversation, I think, and we can get into the details of each of those elements and how to move them forward. I think it's where you all stand, Commission, with these as overall priorities, and if you would like to remove any or add a different focal area.
I really hate to add one, but if we could be rolled into, if there's perhaps an ad hoc related to the Fifth Street West and evaluating maintenance needs, just if this hasn't already been done, and forgive me if it has, a general evaluation of which parks either allow dogs or could allow dogs, because that has come up in a couple of comments. And looking at the municipal codes, I think it's fairly simple to just add a poo bag station and then dogs could be allowed. But obviously, we'd want to do that, not, we would want to have, be very intentional about that, about thinking through that.
And I think you certainly could. One suggestion would be to specifically look at our current parks regulations around dogs, or you could take it one step further and a review and overview of our general park rules, if there's areas outside of dogs. But you certainly can make it specific. I know that is an ongoing topic of discussion in the community.
Yeah, I would just add to that, David Bowling had a really interesting piece in the Sun recently about the dog park issue, not only the Plaza Park, but also the other parks. And we don't want to get into this, but we will. But I think one of the issues is how to maintain sanitary conditions in the parks with dogs. Right. And we used to have adopt a bike path program in here. Why not, we roll this out and start thinking about inviting the dog community to adopt a dog park where they can help monitor and build in compliance with the need to address with dog issues and so forth. And also, help maintain the park. So that's.
Sounds like a great community service project for the high school.
So, like, they're gonna do it.
Somebody has to do a senior project, and so.
So hearing there might be interest in exploring our rules around dog usage in parks. Is that of interest?
I think it's an issue that has community concern in general. That's probably something we should look at. And again, whether that's done as a separate ad hoc or within the maintenance / Fifth Street ad hoc, I don't have a strong feeling, but maybe we kind of just do a poll of who's got passions about which of these issues.
What do you mean by maintenance / You mean Public Works?
Public Works,
Oh,
yes,
okay,
sorry, I'm
okay.
sorry. Yeah,
That's
the
okay.
Public Works issue that was raised about
Okay.
the maintenance schedule.
Got it.
Yes, I'm sorry, I wasn't very clear on that,
Oh, no
yes.
problem, no problem.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if we want to prioritize any of these that we can form ad hocs and move forward with. I think certainly 3 stand out to me. The Plaza Park master planning, the park on the west side, and the urban forestry initiatives, I think, are something that we could work on right away.
Again, I go back to the urban forestry. I think should be handled within the joint city commission with our commission, Climate Action Commission, and a planning commission. But one thing we could do, when the city tree canopy study was presented at the joint session and also to the city council, they emphasized in the study, the canopy study, that there were significant equal benefits of the tree canopy in the city and equal benefits if we add additional trees, which is the goal of the council, is to enhance the tree canopy. And we used to have, so my point was that we could start, even though we're going to be waiting for this tree canopy study to be examined and maybe develop an urban forest management plan for the city at some point. But we used to have a tree fund in this committee, in this city, and we are the tree committee. And so I was thinking, and I proposed some at the council meeting in a public comment, that they want that 2 takeaway steps from that council meeting was one, that we should use this tree canopy study for education and to build well, I'm looking at the wrong one, education and community participation, and also to expand the tree canopy ecosystem benefits. And so I think we should try to have an ad hoc at some point, maybe not because we're getting a good smorgasbord here, that as the city's pros tree committee, that we could try and research why we can't reactivate that tree fund so they could have some funding to really start financing the increased canopy and maintenance of the canopy. Other cities do that. I went on AI, thanks for AI, and found what cities have tree funds, and there's quite a few that would be very interesting. Petaluma right next door has a really good one. So that seems like well within our wheelhouse as the city tree committee to say, let's focus on getting the tree fund established while the other part of this tree canopy study goes forward. So that's something I would be interested in working on at some point, as long as that's also with the joint commission project that pros will be involved with.
I wonder if we can make a recommendation to the council and whomever else that there be regular joint tree committee meetings. I mean, even twice a year. And again, there is so much information that's not shared between the commissions, as far as I know. I mean, I run into commission members of the other commissions, and we chat at like protests, you know, and exchange some information or whatever. But I also think we owe it to them to have them be involved. Plus, they've got big-time scientists on climate action. Planning is a good part. I think it really totally support the idea that that particular bullet point, if possible, is the joint tree committee and not just us.
Agreed, but we could form our committee now that would then interact with the joint.
I mean, there's the,
There's blurred lines there as far as I'm concerned about how much, I mean, I've been saying this for a long time. I'd like to have more communication. There was going to be, monthly meetings between chairs and vice chairs of all the commissions so they could exchange information. So, there you go.
So what I'm hearing, at least in the recent comments, is perhaps that the urban forestry initiatives, you'd like to see that not necessarily as specific to this commission, but making sure that you have representatives identified, and again, we can collaborate with the city clerk and the other commissions to have the joint tree committee focus on these efforts with reports coming back to the commission. Is that a fair assessment and of what I'm heard recently? And then I guess we want to see if there's consensus across the board to essentially remove that one and move that more into the joint tree committee. And then if that's the case, looking at the other 4, we've got 2 so far that sounds like there's consensus. If there's others we want to include, again, we don't necessarily have to get into the individual details, but it's more the concept that you want to focus on, and then if you want to add some ad hocs to that.
Well, I'd like to see an ad hoc on the Depot Park, especially since there's going to be work done on the Field of Dreams. And it seems like, where are you in that process?
We're currently moving where Transcendence has been performing out to center field of Peterson. So we're in the design construction phase of that. Our goal is to have that done by this summer. And then that's kind of one of the main fundraisers that'll help. It's going to be a very expensive project to redo that whole thing. So it's a couple years down the road, but it is our goal to get that kick-started and designed and done. So, yeah, I think that ties it all in together, in my opinion.
Dave, as a point of information, an ad hoc committee generally would be almost like an advisory committee to this commission. Is that fair? I mean, it can't actually take action. It would really be doing the investigation, doing the legwork, and then coming back to this commission with a recommendation on some issue, which we would then recommend something to the city council?
Correct, depending on the nature of whether it needs to go to council or if it's handled here at the commission, but that's correct. And so, you know, what I'm accustomed to doesn't have to be, certainly when there's ad hocs, you'll meet with usually me or another staff member, kind of set what our goals are. What our goals are for that ad hoc, and then that allows you as commissioners to do research, to do legwork, to help formulate. We can meet individually. And so I think the thing to point out, the difference in the Depot Park compared to Plaza Park and Park on 5th Street West, Plaza Park and 5th Street West most likely would have, you know, it's a consultant team. And so it's being part of that advisory group to that consultant team to make sure that planning process is done in accordance. Depot Park is not set up with an established project this time. So this is an opportunity to kind of do a little guerrilla communication, get out there and essentially meet with communities, understand that there's different parcels, needs, interests out there, come up with what the priorities for use of that park might look like when we're looking at the Masonavi Cottage, when you're looking at the picnic areas, the museum that's out there, that combination of how county and city infrastructure interfaces with each other. So that's kind of the difference between those two areas. So I'm hearing Plaza Park, yes. 5th Street West, sounds like there's interest in helping visioning Depot Park. Big interest in tree canopy study, but thinking that belongs in the Joint Tree Commission, which that leads us with community-wide needs, whether that is something you want to focus on as a commission and or have that go back to staff's work.
I'm happy to advise on that if that's needed. But my area of expertise is going to be more in the youth aspect of that. So that's where I can add.
There's a lot of old folks in town, Joel.
I understand, and I can reach out to them as well. I'm just letting you know that that's where my area of expertise is going to be more.
But you know, until I served on this commission, I was unaware that there's 700 bocce folks. 700 of them.
Oh, Petanque is even bigger. It's the largest private Petanque club.
Mike, sorry.
Largest private Petanque club in the country.
And get ready for more pickleball.
Yeah. Anybody want to join Joel on that?
Yes, I'm happy to do that in the Depot Park. I'll volunteer for those too.
So what are you volunteering to do?
Whatever
Be an
staff is asked.
So we would define that when we met as an ad hoc of what, you know, essentially how do we take this concept of assessing community-wide needs and then how do we want to tackle that? And so to me, it's helping form, you know, whether that's having meetings with stakeholders, whether that's a community-wide survey, whether that's all of the above, bringing in the partners that already deliver services to that area. So that's us. We'd have to take that and define that further. But essentially evaluating what we currently have and what's missing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also one of the people right now helping to replant the new trees that are outlining the Little League fields in Depot Park. So
I'd be willing to join you on that committee.
Oh, sorry.
All
Yeah.
ages.
Community-wide
Community-wide, yes.
activity needs and gaps.
I'm interested in the park, the Plaza Master Plan in Depot Park for ad hoc committee.
I'd be happy to be on the west side park.
If we're not getting overloaded, I would love to be on Plaza Park and West Side, but I don't know what our numbers are so far. And don't want to.
I think you're good.
Okay.
Good.
I think I already spoken. I'd like to be on the ad hoc that would interface for the urban forestry and tree fund project.
Yeah, and if the commission's comfortable, I mean, the wheels are turning. I think keeping that as a goal, and may slightly rephrase it, but I think essentially it's working in collaboration with the Joint Tree Committee to move. I think we want to make sure we keep it on that's of importance to us. I think it sends a message that this is something we're focused on, even though the work will be done by way of that Joint Tree Committee.
But it doesn't hurt to have a point person or a point ad hoc committee, whether it's just a committee of one or a committee of three or two, to sort of be that main interface. Is that what we're suggesting?
Just shepherd it along, maybe.
Yes, and so I know from that there will then be initiatives that we say, okay, from a pros standpoint, we have expertise in this area. Climate action may focus on other initiatives when they start to dissect the canopy study.
And if there's a spot still available, I'd be interested in helping with the West Side Park.
Yes, Jessica, you said the new park, what was the other one? Okay, that's fine. I thought you said two, I'm sorry.
No, just the one.
I don't know what the numbers are, but it doesn't seem like there were a lot in the community-wide needs. So there's two.
We have room for
So
one
I
more.
would do that, and is there another for Depot Park?
I think we only have two there.
Okay,
currently.
so those two.
Okay, we're going to do a recap of assignments here. Has everyone had a chance to weigh in here? So we're going to start. I'm going to go from the top item down. So Plaza Park master planning process.
Yeah, just with reference to what you just suggested about the access community-wide activity needs and identify programming gaps. Sorry. That goes back to when the community task force on parks with Karen Collins and Steve Page, they did come up with a parks directory, which is on the website. But the goal of that then, when we inherited, was to go out and do community engagement to find out where the gaps are and how it's being used. So one place to start might be, if maybe Sarah Tracy would know, I think she monitors that, what parts of that current directory are being hit the most and which ones, that might be some helpful information.
That's a great point. We do have access to that directory. I know it was a huge starting point in understanding what all the offerings are. Okay, so for the Plaza Park Master Plan, I have Commissioners Cullinan, Commissioner Tolbert, and Commissioner Henry. Does that match up with what you have, Kathy? It does now? I think that's where we are?
Now it's, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, now it's good.
West Park on the west side of Sonoma, Commissioners Mizraka, Commissioner Henry,
Vice Chair Tolbert.
okay. Community-wide activity needs, Commissioners Green, Tolbert, Colarusso. Urban Forestry Initiative, Commissioner Donnelly. Commissioner Mizraka. And Depot Park, Commissioners Green, Cullinan, Colarusso. We capture that correctly? Fantastic. And then I did make note, we will, I think, utilizing the parks assessment, getting an evaluation of where we are with the 2022. And good news is that parks maintenance has, I mean, good because it's very readily available to me, is now in Parks and Recreation. So we said Public Works, but we can bring park staff back. Granted, we were going to heavily rely on Public Works institutional knowledge on this because it was, they've done all the heavy lifting on the parks maintenance side of things until recently, and they're still involved. So we'll work on, I'll get a status update on when that's been last looked at, but I think a very important observation that we look at is making sure that we have an understanding of our current maintenance needs as we're looking to develop and enhance in the future. So that's the summary of where we landed, but before we take any final action on it, do want to remind that we should open for public comment. When
Public comments?
Yes, thank you.
Well, what a productive meeting.
And I'm so glad that there's such great interest in the park at Fifth Street West.
I'm sorry, could you give me
Oh,
your name?
yes, Ann, A-N-N, Colichidas, Colichidas. And I live in Pueblo Serena Mobile Home Park. And I'm also the president of the local Mobile Home Owners Association. So, and there's two parks right there on that corner of Fifth Street West and West MacArthur. And although there are families, it's still mostly seniors in that one park, and the other park is 55 plus. And we have, the site is on a busy intersection there with high traffic at Fifth Street West, and an enclosed dog park. So we're talking like a dog run, not just a place where dogs are allowed to be. An enclosed dog run would be particularly suitable for that busy corner. There is a playground with a large grassy area, playground equipment, and picnic tables that's accessible both from Friar Creek Trail and from Fifth Street West. It's very much nearby, and so there is a playground on that side already. This proposed dog run would be also accessible from Friar Creek Trail, and it's we have that flashing sign there thanks to Council Member Sandra Lowe. So it's actually people aren't afraid to cross the street there anymore. But so there's almost 400 mobile homes there, and also, as it says here, situated with a residential neighborhood characterized by dense housing, and it is. So there's a lot of people living there, and there's also not Sonoma Creek, the home where the Sonoma Hills, where is a residential place that I think people probably have dogs there, and the rules for having pets in a mobile home park or a senior living place, they're very strict. And one of the reasons I don't have a dog is because there's no place for them to be free at all, and they can't even be in their own yard without being on a leash. So it would be really wonderful to have a place where pets could go, where people could go, people and pets, and some trees. And I ran into the garden club woman outside, and she said, "Oh yes, we can do that. The garden club can help with that." So I think it would be really wonderful, and I'm really happy to see that this is on your goal for this year, and you already have a committee. Probably if you want to do some outreach there, I imagine we could arrange for one of the clubhouses or the mobile home park at Moon Valley has a larger clubhouse and a parking lot. It's possible we could check with that and do something like that if you want to do some outreach locally. But I really hope you will consider. I don't know. Can I ask a question? What is the configuration of that parcel? Is it just that strip, or does it go over that little creek? And anybody know how big the?
Yeah, it's a piece of it, and we have to be careful not to get too far into answering specifics, since this is
Right.
not actually on our agenda. But what
Right.
I believe on the website, it has the outline of it, but as far as I know, it is kind of that. It's the frontal area. There is another vacant lot that currently is not city property that's, I guess, would be east
Behind
of
it.
it. Yeah.
Okay, I see that. I see the picture here. Okay, that's all I want. All right. So yeah, it is kind of a funny little piece, but it's almost that intersection is almost now a new gateway to Sonoma, and it gets very clogged up at certain times during the day. But so it would be great to have something nice there now that they've all been built up. So
May I ask you a question?
yeah,
Are you proposing that it be a dog park?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And so you're talking about a fenced,
dog run. Yes.
so that's it for the whole piece?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not a designer, but I would say that a dog run there. Yeah, that's what Councilmember Lowe had been talking to us about now for some years.
Okay, so you're kind of like what we have right here.
Yeah. So anyway, I appreciate your consideration on that, and we'd certainly like to, like I said, there's 400 homes, mobile homes there on that corner, so we certainly would like to have our input on the process that goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, do we need to approve the ad hocs?
We do. So if we're in agreement, we would be looking for you to adopt your work plan. Again, one thing I should have mentioned is this can change. Like if you decide throughout the year that something has changed your focus or something unexpected, we know that there's going to be items that we're not thinking of now that may come into your focus. So the work plan can certainly change by way of a future meeting by making adjustments to it. But we would be looking for you to adopt the work plan this evening. And if you're set with those ad hoc committee assignments, and of course, again, those can pivot throughout the year as well.
Can we vote on them all at once, or do we have to do it individually?
Absolutely. So if we want, we can give just a quick recap of the assignments and making sure everyone is in agreement with the priority areas, with the exception of my one typo in assessing community-wide needs. We don't need identified twice in there. And that the focus of the urban forestry initiatives would be focused around the Joint Tree Committee, and I can wordsmith that and work with both Commissioner Donnelly and Ms. Rocca to make sure that wording is appropriate for them as ad hoc committees. So with supporting the Plaza Park master plan process, we have commissioners.
Commissioner Cullinan, Vice Chair Tolbert, Commissioner Henry.
Advance the development of the park on 5th Street, west side of Sonoma.
Commissioner Mizuraka, Commissioner Henry, and Vice Chair Tolbert.
Assess community-wide activity needs and identify programming gaps.
Commissioner Green, Vice Chair Tolbert, Commissioner Colarusso.
Support implementation of urban forestry initiatives in conjunction with the Joint Tree or by way of the Joint Tree Committee.
Commissioners Donnelly and Mizuraka.
And lead community visioning for Depot Park.
Commissioner Cullinan, Commissioner Green, and Commissioner Colarusso.
So if that sounds in agreement, someone may make a motion on those goals and committee assignments.
I'll make a motion to accept the ad hoc committees as listed.
Second.
Your mic, Jess.
Maybe I'll start over. Okay. I recommend that we approve the 2026 pros, goals, and priorities as discussed, and the formation of the ad hocs as discussed.
Second.
Okay. Commissioner Colarusso?
Yes.
Commissioner Cullinan?
Yes.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes.
Commissioner Mizuraka?
Aye.
Vice Chair Tolbert?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we're gonna close that item, but,
Yep.
I noticed by the bylaws that if we're gonna extend beyond 9 o'clock, we have to vote on it.
Didn't think we'd be here, but you are absolutely correct. We do. And these last two items should go quick, but my guess is we will go a hair past 9.
Yeah, inefficiency, yeah.
I move to extend the meeting for the last two items.
Second.
Commissioner Colarusso?
Yes. Yes.
Try that one more time.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Cullinan? They're tired too. Commissioner Donnelly?
Okay.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes.
Commissioner Mizuraka?
Aye.
Vice Chair Tolbert?
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
okay. Item 5.5, the appointment of a 2026 chair and vice chair. I'm gonna turn this over to Cathy.
All right. So annually, Parks, Recreation, and Open Space conducts a reorganization, and we did it already, but because Chair Izetta had to step down, we're doing this over. I'm not reading the whole thing to you, but you guys, you got that. Okay, so the selection process is going to go as follows. I will call for nominations for the position of chair. And to make a nomination, you only need to state, I nominate blank. And they don't require a second, and other members may express support for a nomination by making a seconding statement. When no further nominations are made, staff will declare nominations for the position as chair closed and will allow for public comment, if any. And a roll call vote will then be taken with the first nominee. Once we do that, then we'll go through for vice chair. So, are there any nominations for chair? Well, unless you have any questions before that. Well, we have to do nominations for chair first.
I nominate Charles Tolbert for chair.
Can I second that?
We don't need a second, but you can say I want Charlie to. Okay. Would you guys like to do a vote on that then? Okay. Commissioner Colarusso?
Yes.
Commissioner Cullinan?
Yes.
Commissioner Donnelly?
Indeed.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Henry?
Yes.
Commissioner Mizuraka?
Aye.
Vice Chair Tolbert? I guess I should have asked you that first.
Yes, and thank you for my continued 15 minutes of fame.
He'll do a fine job. Okay. Vice Chair, do we have a nomination for that?
First of all, anybody want to opt out so we can narrow this?
Thank you. That's a good point.
I opt out.
You can opt out or in if you choose.
Correct. You could nominate yourself if you wanted to, correct, Dave? Or maybe not?
I think if there's any, no, I'll let you. You
Okay.
can either, if people want to express their interest and or if people have other ideas in mind, but I think it's wise to see who's not interested first and foremost. That limits
Yeah.
the decision-making.
I'll nominate Jessica. You didn't opt out, did you? Okay.
Unless we have any other nominations, we'll go with the roll call. Are you okay with that, Jess? Okay. I'm sorry, Commissioner Mizuraka. Commissioner Colarusso,
Yes.
Commissioner Cullinan,
Yes.
Commissioner Donnelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Henry,
Yes.
Commissioner Mizuraka,
Aye.
Chair Tolbert.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. And thank you guys both for offering to do that.
Okay, item 5.6, review the adopted 2026 meeting calendar and discuss future meeting frequency.
And the reason behind this is in speaking to commissioners, I know there was an interest in revisiting from some commissioners. Right now, we currently are set up to meet quarterly, and I know that we have items that occasionally will come to us more frequently than that. And so right now, we have meetings scheduled in March, June, September, and December. I did some research. There was some interest in potentially, I know it was brought to me about maybe meeting more frequently. So I spoke to the city clerk, and based on our bylaws and how it's spelled out in the municipal code, we actually need council to approve any regular meetings outside or changing our schedule outside of quarterly. And so it's recommended if we do want to change to a regular basis of meeting more frequently, that would happen when we adopt our calendar next year. That being said, you have the ability to add special meetings at any point, or you can kind of schedule some special meetings. What I'm getting at is if you did have an interest in meeting more frequently, we can add special meetings to the calendar, or we can be available to meet more frequently as needed. So I wanted to open the floor because I know that there had been some interest from some, not everyone had been involved, so I wanted to bring this discussion to the commission about kind of having a preliminary discussion about if we like the frequency in meeting quarterly, knowing if you meet more, that obviously is a larger commitment, but may provide fewer items to come forward and or keep momentum moving forward. So I wanted to open the floor up to the commission to have a brief discussion about their interest in keeping to the quarterly meetings as scheduled, continuing to be able to have special meetings as needed, and or exploring meeting more frequently in the future.
just a point of information, Dave, if we were to, say, schedule additional special meetings today and we don't really need them, we can cancel them later, right?
That's correct. Before we could confirm meetings, we do have to check. One of the biggest things is about room availability, because we are not but in addition to obviously the other commissions and council, but outside of the city, other entities use these facilities who do have to check on availability. So I think if there is an interest in meeting more frequently, what we can do is check availability on that front.
I would prefer to keep the quarterly meetings. It seems that when we have been a tree committee, the issue has come up, and blessedly we weren't on the agenda tonight to have tree removal applications. Last time I think we had 7, didn't we?
There were not any tree removal applications submitted to
That's what I'm
Public
saying.
Works. Yeah.
That was very nice. But that used to be the argument for more frequent meetings, because somebody applies for a tree removal and waits 3 months to get the okay to do it. And so I don't think, I'm happy to keep the quarterly meetings, and let's see if we can address that in other ways.
I second your opinion.
I'm gonna lean on you guys who have done this, so that's kind of where I'm gonna put this. And do we have the schedule for the other meetings?
We do. I don't. Kathy may have them at her fingertips here, but we do. And one thing I will do, especially for the new commissioners, and I don't know if we've done this historically, but one thing I like to do is I'll put them on your calendar, because I know it's easy to sneak up, and we all have a lot of other things happening out there, so make sure those get on your calendars. But they are set.
Correct. I did send it to the original members, but obviously it didn't happen before. The next one is June 10th, and then September 9th and December 9th. And they are all on the City of Sonoma's website, and they're pretty easy to find if you look at Public Works. I mean, sorry, Park Pros.
Yeah. And it's
I live
always
at Public
the
Works.
It's always the second Wednesday. Is that
For
right?
this one, yes, we've had some changes with other ones, so you kind of need to check that also.
I'm certainly never a fan of meeting for the sake of meetings, but I would suggest maybe if we do receive tree removal applications and there's more than like 2 months before the next meeting, maybe we schedule it, the chair can schedule a special at any time, right?
That's correct. We have the
Just to
ability
be responsive.
We do have the ability to schedule special meetings as needed based on
And
information.
we made progress in that area because we now have a city arborist who makes recommendations that generally we're on board with. Where we're lacking with the tree removal is an overarching, consistent approach. It's kind of a case by case.
I think we've got our direction, so we will stick to the quarterly. And what I will do is, if items come up that seem like they are urgent in nature, I'll reach out to chair and vice chair and see if it warrants scheduling special meetings as needed. But for now, we have our schedule set. It sounds like.
Unless there's any objections, I think we can adjourn.
No.
Nope.
Staff comments and commissioner comments.
Good thing you're here, Jessica.
I will keep my comments very brief because you've heard from me enough tonight. But just one thing I wanted to share. There's other things happening, but we are working on getting more volunteer opportunities out for the community, and so we're doing monthly cemetery volunteer outings. We had one just in February. We have one coming up on March 21st out at Mountain Cemetery once again. So I will share that information with you all in case you are interested in participating. And one thing we're looking to do is take that beyond cemeteries and out into our parks more, and also working with our partnering agencies. If there's volunteer needs that we can help amplify, please let us know, as we want to really increase our volunteerism and get things going like the Adopt a Pathway and use the volunteer support where we can. So next one for your calendars, if you're interested, March 21st, Saturday, 9 to 12, Mountain Cemetery. But we'll get more information coming on your front. And just to do a little cross commission promotion, we do, in working with the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission, the Student Creative Artist Award application is out now, and I believe closes next week towards the end of next week. That is for any of our young local artists. Up to $5,000 in prizes are distributed, so if you know anyone that's young and budding in the artist world, please encourage them to apply. And then finally, tomorrow evening is the All Call Day event, where they're recognizing Gary Edwards. And if you haven't seen that or had a chance to RSVP, that'll be at Vintage House at 6 o'clock, and I think you can still RSVP, and we'd love to see people there. And that's the end of my staff reports.
Did you guys have commissioner comments, because you skipped that?
Right into it.
I have one. First of all, it's great to have new commissioners, Joe and Lisa and Joel, back to full, and to have our new Parks Director leading us too. My comment at the last meeting in December was just after there was an article in the Sun about e-scooter and e-bike collisions here in Sonoma, one mostly focusing on kids not being properly wearing helmets and doing safety. But my concern is the danger to pedestrians. And one of the council goals, priorities for Pros Commission in 2026 was to enhance pedestrian safety throughout the city. And since then, there's been, in February, there was e-bike crackdown and the Press Democrat about local cities all dealing with this accelerating problem of kids who don't, it's mostly younger kids, and these bikes are quiet. I'm on the bike path many times, and they go whizzing by. They don't call out anymore like pedal bikes used to do. So I think we need to put this on the agenda. There was another big article in the New York Times just last month, the shocking crash that led to one county to reckon with dangers of e-bikes, and says unregulated e-bikes are a growing danger in American streets. And one Bay Area town learned a terrible way. That was in Marin. And it goes on with all the different ways in which cities are trying to regulate and educate for this. But I think, I always have a problem with the fact that the bike path is called the bike path and not a bike pedestrian path. Because I've had bicycles, it's our path. You get out of the way, we're going around you. And so I just say, can we put this on the agenda? If there's a consensus, put this on the agenda for an upcoming meeting so that we start to focus on one of the priorities of the council.
I'll second that, particularly because I've heard a lot of public comment on this very issue.
I would suggest that everyone read the New York Times Sunday Magazine article. It was a feature based in Marin. I actually sent it to the council members. I think I CC'd you. And one of the issues is that since electric bikes, there's no regulation on them. There's no regulation on the speed, and then there's electric skateboards and the whole thing. And the head injury count has gone way up in Marin. That's been one thing.
So I think excellent point, and we can certainly look to add that to our next meeting agenda. And I've talked to our police chief, Chief Cutting, and I know they're well versed, and it is a challenging topic on how it's monitored, because it doesn't necessarily come down to speed, but it's more about the power that's behind the engine. So that having someone from the sheriff's department join us and give their understanding, and then how we can look at it from a parks perspective, and working on signage and education and what other impacts we can have. It certainly, I know, is a region-wide, I'm sure country-wide issue that we're facing right now.
Speed bumps.
Second.
Or is it traffic safety? Or is it a traffic safety item?
I mean, it is certainly intertwined, but as we're talking specific to how they're utilized in our parks and pathway, could be. And so if there's interest in the commission, at least getting an update on that front, we can make that happen.
Mike, please.
One of our core responsibilities in the city code for our to advise the council is proposed improvements or modifications to existing street thoroughfares, including not limit to sidewalks, area, city park, cemetery. To address this.
Can you forward that article as well?
Sure.
The New York Times one?
I don't have your, but I'll send it to Dave and maybe he can disseminate it to the group.
Yeah, then we'd have
I'll send
each
it to
other's
Dave,
contacts.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any further comments?
Just a quick comment. Is everyone familiar with the Ting project? The Ting? Just, I went to a meeting on that some time ago, and Dave was there, and Mayor Wellender, and I asked the mayor specifically, do you want this to go to pros? And he said, no, they'll take it straight to city council. So just for information, that issue is not before this commission. It's going to go straight to the council.
I reached out to Councilman Ding a year or so ago and said that could qualify for Measure M money, but there was no response. So I think must be that they want to do this separate from the commission.
Any further comments?
Comment. I just want to say there are more cookies left over there.
So, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
We're only
Chair.
16 minutes over.
That's great.